Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. Karen loses it on poor cashier because she couldn't give her money to feed her kid. Today I ran into possibly the most entitled Karen and goblin I've seen in a while. So a little backstory. My best friend is British, while I'm Latin American. As an early birthday gift, she sent me some cash through Western Union for me to get my nails done at this incredibly fancy salon I'd been wanting to go to for a while, and I had to pick it up at this agency where you can collect cash or pay bills. When I got there, there was a huge queue, but since I was on a tight schedule, I had no option but to bite the proverbial bullet and queue. Anyway, I walked over to the queue, whipped out my Nintendo Switch, and proceeded to search for moons all over Mario Odyssey's world. After maybe 5 minutes, a young woman that was already in the queue told us that Western Union's system was down and that we had to wait. I weighed my options and decided to stay around for a little while. Otherwise, I'd have to pick up the money some other time. Just as I moved out of the queue, Karen and her goblin made their appearance. The woman had to be in her late 40s, early 50s, and her kid was around 4. She already had this "I need the manager" look about her, and when she heard what the young woman had said, she saw the opportunity to rant, and you can bet your butt she took it. She complained about how slow the cashier was, about the fact that she had been there for 40 minutes already, about how the cashier was probably so slow because she didn't know how to do her job. I tuned her out and went back to my game. When Karen noticed no one was paying attention, she went back to the queue, intent on getting her money, even if the system was not up and running. As I said before, the queue was huge, so it was a good 20 minutes before Karen got to the cashier. While we waited, her goblin ran around the place, screamed, and kicked the walls over and over, so much so that he left countless imprints of his shoe on the walls. Meanwhile, Karen said nothing and let her kid do as he pleased. An old lady tried to gently calm him down, but he simply wouldn't listen. Anyway, when Karen finally made it to the register, the conversation went like this. Karen: "I am here to get my money." Cashier: "I'm sorry, ma'am. The system is still not working. I suggest you try again around 3 p.m. It was 12 p.m. The system should be up and running by then. Karen lost her mind right then and there. She started screeching, "No, that is not happening. I'm not moving from this spot until I get my money." Cashier: "Ma'am, as I told you, there's nothing I can do if the system isn't working." "That's a lie. You are a liar. You don't know how to do your job. That's what's going on here. You are a new employee, and you are useless and don't know how to do your job." Cashier, visibly upset: "Ma'am, I've worked here for over a year and a half. I know how to do my job. If the system is down, there is—" "BS! Why don't you restart your computer? Why don't you try to fix it? I want my money now. You probably want me to come back at 3 p.m. because that's when the other cashier clocks in, and she, unlike you, knows how to do her job." By this stage, everyone in the queue was either baffled, angry, or a mixture of both. The guy behind her was livid. He walked up to Karen and told her to shut up and leave the cashier alone because she was no one to give her orders, especially when it was clear she had no idea what she was talking about. Karen didn't back down. "I'm not shutting up. This woman has my money. I need the money because I have none left. Not even to pay for the bus back home or buy my son lunch. He is hungry and has been here for 2 hours already." Not true. Nobody seemed to care much about this. and they tell Karen to get out because she was holding everybody up. Seeing as the system was down and the situation was a sideshow, I put away my Nintendo, turned on my heels, and I started to walk out of there, towards the Starbucks cafe inside the agency. Just as I was walking out, I bumped into the same young woman who had let us know the system was down. Young woman, the system's still down, right? I nodded. Young woman, oh, well, I guess I'll have to go to another Western Union to get my money. Now, I've been using Western Union for years, and I know its ins and outs. If the system is down, then every single Western Union agency won't be working. I told her that it was pointless for her to try and go somewhere else and suggested that she wait like the cashier said, since it wasn't unusual for the system to fail every once in a while. Unluckily for us, Karen overheard. She had been kicked out of the queue, but still wasn't done. She made a beeline for us, ready to talk crap about the cashier. Karen, that useless jerk has no idea what she is talking about. How does she know that the system would be up and running by 3 p.m.? Is she a witch or something? I don't think so. She just doesn't want to do her job. How hard can it be to restart her computer? I felt my soul give a silent cry at this boomer not understanding how the internet works, but I still kept my cool and put on a smile. I explained to her that the problem was not the computer, but rather the system the computer was connected to. So restarting the computer wouldn't have solved anything. I also told her I've been using Western Union for years and that it isn't uncommon for it to fail sometimes, but that it will be up and running in a few hours. Still, Karen wasn't buying it. She was determined to think the cashier was a useless lump, and she said so loudly. That was when I lost it. Me. Listen, the cashier did nothing wrong. There is a problem in the system. It's not working anywhere right now. What part of this do you not understand? But the woman didn't even… No, stop it. She did nothing wrong. You were in the wrong. You can't talk to people like that. You were rude. I kid you not. Karen gave me a death glare. And what do you know? You weren't here before. She made me wait for hours, and my kid is hungry, and I have no money to feed him. But what do you know about dealing with an upset child? She was right. I don't deal with an upset kid. I deal with 30 at a time because I am a teacher. Anyway, after she said that, I told her it wasn't the woman's fault her kid was hungry or that she had no money for the bus. She still had no right to talk to the woman like that. Karen waved me off, rolled her eyes, and said something about me not knowing crap. I smiled to myself, loudly clasped my hands, and said, well, looks like being a jerk runs in the family. Karen stopped dead in her tracks and spun on her heels to face me, ready to attack. She started screaming at me that I have no idea what it was like to have a hungry child. I never got to hear the rest of her sentence because I was done with her. I had turned on my heels, marched into the nearby Starbucks, and slammed the door behind me, leaving a livid Karen talking to herself. Next we've got, the student has become the master. It's the early 2000s, and I am a senior in high school. My graduating class had 800 students in it, and the class itself was a massive campus broken up into around 6 buildings. The first day of my senior year, we spend the entire day in homeroom. You would only visit homeroom maybe 3 or 4 times a year at this school. It was just an easy way to break the student body up into manageable groups. If every student has to do a thing, line up by homeroom. If a teacher needs an arbitrary way to break up the class into groups, homeroom building letter. Want to check out a book? Name and homeroom. Want tickets to prom? School ID and homeroom. School needs to make sure everyone watches a presentation. For hour 1, please go to homeroom. For all this homeroom talk, we actually sat in the room twice my senior year, and in the case of my room in particular, only once. So it is the first day of school. I have my schedule in hand and am headed to my homeroom, room A003. So, a building in the basement. Room 3, there it is. I sit down well before the bell and manage to snag the last of the 16 desks in this broom closet of a room. Shortly thereafter, we are a standing room only. And by the time the first bell rings, we upgrade to 1 sardine tin worth of students. 36 students, 16 desks. We haven't even gotten to that class yet, but things are not adding up. My homeroom teacher stands in the doorway, takes one look at his sardine students and says, "Nope, everyone out into the hallway." So we all march out of our clown car classroom. The teacher then takes us to room A004, which is over twice the size and has plenty of desks. The teacher tells us, "Just write A004 on your schedules. If you are asked your homeroom number, say A003. But if you are told to go to homeroom, come here instead." Fast forward one school year. It's the last day of school. Now, for obvious reasons, no sane teacher in this district would think to demand a class of seniors to do anything on the last day of high school other than watch the clock. We are sent to homeroom. Now, I just so happened to measure in at 6'2", and my hard-grown peach fuzz beard had matured into a wonderful dark brown. All those nights of standing in the mirror using sheer willpower to make it grow more had paid off. And the icing on this cake was the fact that I had elected. Okay, so we had some family stuff to go to, and I would have to leave the school and drive to said family stuff directly. So I was dressed in my Sunday best, a full-sleeve collared button-down with slacks and my nice leather formal shoes. These three things became the trifecta for this series of events. The bell rings and no teacher. Okay, maybe he's late. 10 minutes after bell. Maybe he's really late. 15? 30? So there was nothing but chaos in the classroom. Everyone was doing whatever they wanted with no hands barred. I elected to doodle in my notebook, like the cultured young adult I was pretending to be. That is when my pencil broke. So I get up and head over to the pencil sharpener and get to sharpening. I stop and admire my handiwork when there is a knock at the door. This kills half the noise in the room. I open the door to find an older, 5 foot not an inch more, looking the 14 inches up at me. She hastily explains that her class is missing. Before I get a word in, she shows me a piece of paper. She is a substitute teacher, and she is subbing for our homeroom teacher. The class is down to hushed whispers as everyone is listening. I just look at this poor lady as she explains that all the kids just haven't shown. Not a single one. Is this A building? This is A003, right? At this time, one of my more quick-thinking classmates raises her hand and says, "Mr. OP?" This clues me in, and all the pieces click into place. I excuse myself and address the class, asking them to please keep it down and keep out their health books, page 107. Without a single misstep, my comrades in arms all grab their books and turn to the page. Not one word is uttered for fear of breaking the voodoo that we were casting. My fate as the teacher of A004 was sealed at that point. I give the substitute instructions to get to the main office and tell her to double-check the assignment. She hurries off, and I turn to my class. For a few terrible minutes, no one breathes. Then, when we hear the sound of someone ascending the stairs out of the basement, we all burst into laughter. Now begins phase 2, sealing the deal. A few students rush up and scribble health-related notes up in the whiteboard. I grab my health book, turn to the fateful page. Wouldn't you know it? Human growth and development. Nice. A watcher keeps an eye on the hallway. Sure enough, 20 or so minutes later, the sub returns, and she is not alone. One of the principals came along for the ride. They examined A003. No kids. We panic. A principal was not part of the plan. The largest kid in the class jumps up. "My time to shine," he says. He grabs his books and stands in front of the class. He all but obscures me from view. The door opens and the principal sticks his head in the room. Big Kid is halfway through describing the precise medical definition of a particular part of the male body, not the one you are probably thinking of, by the way. And without even a double take, the principal is gone. Victory! We spend the remaining 6 or so hours of class completely unsupervised. It truly was the best day of my high school career. Edit for clarification. The sub sat in the old homeroom and did not get sent home. She basically got paid to sit on her phone for the day. What was the funnest experience you had when you were in school? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, entitled roommate made my life unbearable, so I got revenge. A few years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I moved in with a friend. We'll call him Bob. Bob was a bit of a drinker and partier, but mainly did so outside the house, so it really was not an inconvenience. It was me and my long-since ex-girlfriend also living there. I had lost my job and been out of work for a while, not for lack of trying, in a very small town with not much to do for work. Bob worked 2 jobs. He loved money and drinking so much, he didn't mind if he hardly had a life to get to enjoy it, and my girlfriend worked in a nursing home during the day. I felt pretty worthless since I was no longer the breadwinner anymore, but did what I could to help out. I got food stamps to take on the food situation for the household, cleaned, cooked, and did whatever I could to keep anyone needing to do a thing once they were done working for the day. It was literally the least I could do given the circumstances. About a month or 2 into our living arrangements, Bob suggested his old high school buddy, we'll call him Jerk, move in. Bob explained that he worked on the boats and he would be gone for a month at a time and be back for 2 weeks. Dry, rinse, and repeat. My girlfriend and I thought, shouldn't be a problem, right? Wrong. From moment 1, day 1, Jerk was a major passive-aggressive jerk. Bob walked him over to introduce us, and he shook my hand in a manner that he was obviously trying to crush my hand and intimidate me. I could tell from how he looked and acted like an entitled jerk, but what he did and said immediately after confirmed it. So, you don't work and live here rent-free? Must be why Bob asked me to move in. Sure is nice for you, huh? Before I could say anything, Bob spoke up and clarified that while I didn't work, I kept the house clean, cooked, and kept the fridge stocked. I was not mooching and doing my part. Jerk proceeded to say, but his girlfriend works while he stays at home all day? That's totally not cool. It should be you taking care of her, not the other way around. While I totally agreed that I'd rather be there for her than the other way around, I didn't need this jerk commenting and making assumptions that this is what I wanted or needed to hear. Look, I don't enjoy being the one who stays at home while everyone else works. I'd rather be out there working, contributing, and doing something worthwhile. This is not something I chose. If someone called me and offered me a job right now, I'd take it in a heartbeat. I'd prefer it if you stopped inferring that I'm just a lazy bum, I said as politely as I could, despite how angry I was. Jerk looked at me like I grew a second head or something and told me to calm down, like he hadn't said anything that was the least bit insulting, even though he clearly had. He didn't apologize, of course, and he eventually met my girlfriend when she came home. Jerk was very polite and proceeded to make passive passes at her. We need to find you a working man. Or, you could use someone like me to treat you right. My girlfriend was less than enthused by this and told him it was none of his business and she was more than happy with me. So, from the get-go, neither of us liked Jerk at all. We resolved to keep as much space between him and us as possible. Unfortunately, Jerk had about as much social awareness, social cues, personal boundaries, and proper etiquette as a rock. He constantly came barging into our living area, even after being told to either knock and be acknowledged to enter or not come in at all. Also, Jerk turned the upstairs half of the house into a 2-week-long party central when he was home. It was loud. Between having over a dozen people, all drunkenly stomping around and being loud, he was blaring music so loud that the entire house was shaking. His parties were also causing a huge mess in both the house and yard, as well as damage. Jerk and his buddies were also cleaning out the cupboards and fridge of all food for the rest of us, effectively leaving the rest of us with nothing and having to rebuy the food out of pocket. Bob was almost never home. He was either working or at a girlfriend's place. Even when he was home, he came in drunk so he would pass out and wouldn't hear any of it. He also woke up hungover and rushing into work, so he hardly noticed all that was going on. My girlfriend and I sat down with Bob and explained the situation to him. We explained that we had tried talking to Jerk and telling him that he needed to quit coming into our living area all the time and to either politely keep it down so my girlfriend could get some sleep for work or take it elsewhere. We told him about the food, the major mess he was making, and the damage to the house. Bob was livid. He told us that he'd have a talk with Jerk and fix it. We hoped that would fix the issue. Wrong. This clearly, like everything else, didn't get through to him, and from there, it only got worse. The intrusions into our living area were more frequent, ruining our lives when Jerk was home, and the parties got even bigger and more out of hand. A couple of times, the neighbors actually called the cops on Jerk's parties, and he still wouldn't calm down. It was a nightmare. We now knew that the situation would never improve, and further complaints would only make it worse than before. We couldn't move out given our financial situation, and between us and Jerk, being Bob's oldest and best friend, we didn't want to risk getting kicked out for causing issues. So I began finding ways to get back at Jerk silently and without a way to link it to us. Firstly, he had to do his laundry downstairs since that's where the washer and dryer were located in our living area. So whenever he had to put his laundry in the dryer, I'd stop it and pee in it before starting it up again. All his dryers and bedding smelled like straight up pee, and he couldn't figure out why. Jerk wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Secondly, whenever Jerk was gone, I'd go upstairs and dump out 75% of his drinks and replace them with water. This reduced how loud and rambunctious he'd get, with the added bonus of having to go out and get more in the middle of the night. Effectively, we cut down the disruption by 50%, but it still persisted. Thirdly, I would also, just for fun, put his toothbrush in the toilet while he was out and put it back. Jerk started complaining that he constantly tasted something gross every time he used his toothbrush and that he couldn't understand why. This was just icing for me, but he actually had a lot of trouble hooking up with anyone because of it. Eventually, despite all of this, it didn't rid us of either his presence or behavior, and it was still taking its toll on my girlfriend. This had continued for a few months before I concocted a way to get him out of the house longer. Jerk always left on the last Sunday of his 2 weeks off in the morning to return to the boats. He also had a big fancy truck with huge custom tires on it. These tires typically ran about $300 to $400 a tire and were special order tires, hard to find outside of ordering them online. So I started putting nails under a couple of his tires before he left, so they'd puncture his tires when he left, but they wouldn't go flat immediately. He'd get to the boats fine, but his tires would be flat. Jerk would have to stay a week or even the whole 2 weeks special ordering or tracking down new tires while he was stuck in the town he was in at a hotel. My girlfriend and I would either have just 1 week of misery or the whole thing being peace and quiet. It was glorious. This continued for about 2 or 3 months before Jerk finally couldn't take all his misfortune anymore. He told Bob he was moving out when he got back and that it was because everything was going wrong since he moved in. This was especially funny because Bob told us afterwards that he was planning to ask Jerk to move out because he was trashing the house, driving up the utilities, eating up all the food, and refusing to pay the difference. Jerk finally showed up a week late from the boats because of the tire situation, so there was no time for him to relax. Between finding somewhere to put his stuff, somewhere to live, and move everything, this took him all of his final off week to do. Finally, on his last day, Jerk came busting into our room and started being rude and saying he was leaving because everything had been going wrong and felt off since he moved in, clearly wanting sympathy or something. We just nodded and said that's tough while going about our business. Jerk just kept going on and on about everything, despite the fact that we weren't paying him any attention and you could clearly see that we didn't care about what he had to say. Finally, we both got fed up and just looked him dead in the eye and told him he had been a terrible roommate who had no respect for anyone and that he deserved everything that was happening to him, plus some. He stormed off and we never saw him again. Bob did tell us that he had been couch surfing since he moved out and that nobody would let him stay with them because of his behavior. It was glorious, and it brought a smirk to my face every time I heard it. I've long since moved out and am no longer with that girlfriend, and my life is in a much better place. I lament to myself that maybe I was being too underheaded and vindictive, but this guy was toxic, and in all honesty, he got what he deserved. I just hope no one else gets stuck rooming with this guy. Have you ever had a roommate? If so, did you enjoy it? Please leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, I knew it would happen, but really hoped it wouldn't. Cast. We've got me. We've got the greeter. We've got nice manager, elder lady, and entitled customer. Backstory. I've been unemployed since September 19th and started working for a shopper delivery program to pay for gas, insurance, and car note. This happened about 2 weeks ago, so I'm going to be close, but it's memory. So I'm at a store I regularly shop at. It's kind of like Walmart, but it's not. I wave hello to the greeter and head to produce, which is the first section entering in the food side. I'm minding my business, checking the app for the customer's order, and occasionally directing lost customers to items such as avocado or plums, which had small displays. I see elderly lady kind of struggling a bit and decided to see if I can help. Me. Hi, I apologize, but you look a little lost. Do you need any help? I'm a company shopper. Elderly lady. Thank you. I recently moved in with my daughter and have never been in this particular store. I continue shopping for my customer and stay near elderly lady to help her with her list. All is going well, and even with my good deed for the day, I'm still on schedule. Elderly lady says to me that she is going to head to checkout and added that my mother must be proud. Enter our antagonist. Entitled customer. Oh, good. You're finally done with her. I simply walked on as I assumed he was talking to a nearby employee. Entitled customer rushes in front of me. Hi, do I have your attention now? Me. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to an employee. I am, aren't I? No, I don't work here. I don't care if it's near your break time. You still work here. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been helping her. I helped her out of kindness, and I don't work here. I push my cart around him and walk off. I don't suffer idiots or entitled people too well. I'm heading to the front to check out when I felt a hand grab my shoulder. I spin around as best I can. Entitled customer. You don't just walk away from a customer. At this point, I unzip my jacket, which, thinking now, should have been a giveaway, as it was one I got at Home Depot, and showed him my shirt with a funny picture on it. Me. Does this look like a uniform to you? I'm going to get you fired. Greeter, go get a manager, now! The greeter gets on the radio and calls for LP and a manager. So we're both staring daggers at each other while waiting for a manager to come by in dead silence. I'm 6'1", 430 pounds, staring down at a 5'10", maybe 180 pounds, and other customers are gathering around just in case. Enter our hero. Manager. Okay, what seems to be going on? The crowd disperses and I motion to entitled customer to go ahead and get some rope. Entitled customer. I followed this employee for 15 minutes while he helped an elderly woman. Then he refused to help me. I want him fired, and I want to watch him sign the termination papers. You are not going to protect him. Manager looks at me. And what's your story then? I simply pulled out my phone and showed her the shopper app. Greeter. He shops for people. He's in 4 times a day some days. Manager looks at entitled customer and shakes her head. It seems like the pieces are finally coming together. Or he can see the code of the Matrix as his self-righteous smile faded. Entitled customer. Well then, which aisle is cereal? Me, manager, and greeter. Aisle 19. Moral for any Karen or Chad types, don't argue. If you ask nicely, I find many people will help, employee or not. Speaking of groceries, what's your favorite grocery store of all time? Please leave a comment right now letting me know. I'm on vacation, so I get to use your pool. It's the law. Once a year when I was younger, my parents used to take us all on a trip to Puerto Rico, where we'd stay in these fine resorts on the beach. I was reminiscing on these trips earlier with my husband and remembered the free secret pools my mom used to take us to, only to realize what the deal really was with them. One specific story in particular comes to mind about the secret pools. I had to be about 7 or so at the time. My cousins were on the trip with me and were roughly about my age. When the sun beat down too much, the sand got annoying, and we were all crying and cranky, we'd visit the secret pools. My mom used to lead us up all of these paths around big beach houses. She would go up to some and check the gates. If it was locked, we kept going. Finally, one was open, and she went in first to check if anyone was in. She called us in, where a big infinity-style pool and hot tub awaited in this gorgeous backyard. We were told to jump in and have fun, which we all did without asking questions. About 15 to 20 minutes later, someone appears at the back door. The following conversation goes down in Spanish, so I'll translate roughly English. Remember, I am unfortunately entitled Kid 1 in this story. Owner. Who are you, and what are you doing on my property? Mom. The kids are just playing and cooling off. We won't be long. Owner. No, I don't know you. How did you get in here? Mom, getting annoyed. You left the gate open. We were walking by and my kids saw your pool. Owner. Yeah, that's not okay. Please leave. Mom. What? We're on vacation. You left your gate open. It's completely legal for us to be in here because it's on the beach and it's public. We're visiting your country anyway, so we should feel welcomed by the locals. Just let the kids play. Owner. I'm afraid I cannot. Please get off my private property. Mom. No, just 5 more minutes, please. The resort's pool is far away and is way too full. Owner. I will call the police if you don't leave. Mom. Oh, fine. Entitled kids, we need to leave. Come on. Entitled kid 1. 5 more minutes. Mom. No, this mean lady says we need to leave. Both entitled kids start crying. Mom. See what you've done. You don't know how hard it is with kids on vacation. Owner. I have 2 kids, and that is not my problem. Both entitled kids get out in a huff. Entitled kid 2 turning to owner. Can I have a snack? Mom. It's the least you can do. Owner. What? No, I can get you some water, but I want a sandwich. Mom glaring at owner as she leads entitled kids away. You're disgusting. For years, I still didn't understand and would ask about the secret pools whenever we went. After doing it maybe once or twice again at other places, my mom claimed she had no idea about these secret pools and told me to stop talking about them. After over a decade, I remembered these pools and had the realization of what was really going on. Oof. Edit. Yeah, for those asking, we were coming from a state in America. And yes, I know Puerto Rico isn't another country, but my mom didn't. Best part? Her parents were literally born and raised in Puerto Rico. Have you ever been the entitled kid? If so, please let me know. Next we've got, I got revenge on my entitled Sergeant Major. So, as a few may remember from my last post, I have PTSD, and like many soldiers, it took me a long time to admit it to myself, and longer to admit it to others. Before I really knew much about it, or even thought that I had it, I still knew something was wrong with me, and also, like many soldiers, I started to self-medicate. At first it was just drinking, which turned into basically anything else I could get my hands on. Now, I tried not to let it affect my work, but that's pretty hard to do in the military, and eventually this all led to a nervous breakdown that led to me getting caught, losing my E5 rank, and eventually admitting to my leadership what was going on, and I asked for help. Luckily, my leadership liked me and cared about me and allowed me to go to the military version of Alcoholics Anonymous, on the stipulation that I made regular visits with mental health as well. Now then, while my immediate leadership cared a lot more about me than I deserved, this event made my battalion sergeant major, my boss in civilian speak, absolutely hate me. He already had an issue with me before because of a joke I had made when first meeting him. He was from an engineer unit that had been doing some kind of mining work before being transferred, so I asked if that wouldn't make him a sergeant minor instead of a sergeant major, a joke I still stand by. Normally, this wouldn't really be a big issue, as lower enlisted wouldn't have much interaction with someone of his rank, but I was a bit of a special case. I never came down on PCS, permanent change of station, orders, so I spent all 8 years of service at the heck hole that is Fort Stewart, Georgia. Being such a seemingly permanent fixture in my unit, it wasn't unusual for me to be tasked to give the new NCOs of my company tours of the base and battalion, brigade areas, as well as introduce them to the S-Shop personnel, offices that run the day-to-day paperwork and stuff to keep the Army organized and running, as I knew most people there on base. Heck, for a little while, I had even dated a family friend of a brigade commander and sat in on a few poker games with them, the base commander, and other higher-ups. This led to me interacting with the sergeant major more than I should have, since I was in the battalion area more than I normally would have been, and also led to more dislike from him since he perceived me as having more influence than I should have. I didn't really have much or any influence, but from time to time when meeting and passing, the brigade commander would say hi to me, so the sergeant major knew I had played a few games with the big boys on base. Okay, longest backstory ever over now. On to the event. So it was my last day in the unit, and I had just gotten the elusive and highly sought-after Bulldog stamp, which is what the base personnel office uses to signify that you've completed all paperwork and are released from the post, as well as my DD-214, which states I'm no longer in the military. I wasn't quite done at the post, though, as a lot of the guys in my company were throwing a going-away party for me. Just about everyone in my company was there, except for my best friend, who we'll call N, who was stuck on staff duty, a 24-hour shift where you basically just answer phone calls from wives angry that their husbands are working so much and breaking up drunken fights / unlocking barracks doors for soldiers that lock themselves out. Now, In and I had went to basic training together, and we were lucky enough to be stationed at the same unit together, and he'd been there as long as myself. We spent darn near every second together for 8 years at this point. We'd been through 3 deployments, multiple firefights, and he was there when my ex-fiancée left me, and was the guy who very literally drugged me out of bed and dressed me and forced me to go out when my depression got so bad I couldn't make myself get out of bed. He was the best friend that I've ever and will ever have, so I'm sure as heck not leaving without saying goodbye to him, of course. Since he couldn't be there, we had plans the next day together, and I was just crashing at his place that night. Anyway, the party came and went. We laughed and cried and admittedly drank too much. And after it was over, drunk me walked to the battalion area to get N's key card. This was maybe 11 p.m. or midnight, so didn't worry about running into anybody. Plus, I was in civilians, so I wasn't worried about someone there thinking I'm on duty or anything. So I walk in, and of course, true to my luck, was the Sergeant Major, talking to the staff duty NCO. I was drunk, clumsy, and loud, so he noticed me straight away. Sergeant Major.
Scratch that, Sergeant. It looks like Logan here has shown up to volunteer to buff the floors. They better shine by the time I see you at PT.
Me, drunk, happy, and not wanting to end on drama. Roger that, Sergeant Major. He walks off to do whatever, and both N and his NCO laugh, knowing I'll be long gone by PT, and the only part I'd take in buffing the floors was to possibly stand on the buffer while N works it. This helps scratch the wax off before adding the new coat, and is also fun as heck. After a bit of a chat, I grab the keycard from N and turn around to leave, and darn near plow right into the Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major.
I told you to start on the floors 30 minutes ago. What the heck have you been doing?
Me. Sorry, Sergeant Major. I'll get right on that.
No, you had your chance, and you've had more than enough since you've been here. You're getting another Article 15, and I'll have you out of the military by the end of the year.
Obviously, he yelled this, as that's the only way he knew how to speak, so everyone heard him. An important part I forgot to mention was that I had gone straight from the base office to the party, so I still had my paperwork on me. With a huge drunken smile, I hold up my DD-214 in his face, and yelling, though admittedly not nearly as loud, say,
"No you won't, Sergeant Major. I'm a civvy now, so you can buzz off."
And calmly walk past him and out of the doors as he's literally frozen in shock, as it's likely been 2 to 3 decades since someone has disrespected him like that, in public anyway. Admittedly, the walk was all show, and as soon as I was out of sight, I ran faster than I probably had on any PT test and didn't stop until I was inside N's room. Yes, I was younger and in much better shape than the Sergeant Major, but I had no delusions that I could take him. He's been in the Army since 18, back at a time when soldiers were trained to be a different kind of soldier than they are today, and I doubt I would have survived the confrontation without needing surgery. And even if I did somehow win, I doubt the MPs would be kind to someone who assaulted a Sergeant Major. So that's the story. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I spent a couple of weeks after that fielding calls from guys in the unit asking if it really happened, and became a bit of a legend when their story got around. Although, to save time, I may have left out the part where I ran away before he could process what happened. For those wondering, I'm in a much better place now. I haven't been classified as an alcoholic in years, and have even been alcohol-free since November 2018, and haven't had a drug problem since my unit sent me to get help. I still see a therapist twice a month, and as many saw in my last post, recently got a service dog to help. But I'm on meds that work, and even recently had a job change, going from working 14 to 18 hours a day to working 11 max, while still making 100 to 200 more a day. So life is good, despite the rough road here. Thanks for reading. Next we've got the most blatant shoplifting I've ever seen. Okay, so I work at a certain store that sells things for $5 or less, and I've seen kids try to stuff chips in their big coat pockets, take a quick snack from the 10-cent candy when they think nobody's looking, all that fun stuff. But today was just the dumbest attempt at shoplifting that I have ever seen. so it's just me and my manager. So while she's cleaning, I'm keeping watch over the register and doing inventory in between sales. Eventually, this lady comes up to my register with her kid in a stroller, looking absolutely dead to the world, and places a few items on the counter. I'm ringing her up like normal until I notice a Peppa Pig play pack sticking out of the stroller. It's not hidden or anything, so I figured her kid was holding it and that she just forgot about it. So I pointed it out and asked if she was buying it. Customer: "Oh no, that's hers, you see? She brought it from home." Ah, okay, sure. Your unconscious 3-year-old brought along an unopened play pack on her and mom's trip to the store. I'm already ready to call this woman out on it, but benefit of the doubt, right? She could have brought it from home and then fell asleep, but then this woman kept talking. "Wow, you guys sell this here? I've never seen it in your store." She readjusts it in the stroller. "Hold on to it and don't lose it." Now, as she's readjusting it, I almost burst into laughter then and there. Me: "Ma'am, may I see the play pack?" Now, it took a bit of arguing, but I guess she decided she can convince me it was hers. So, as I'm holding on to it, I start questioning her. Me: "So, you say that your daughter brought this unopened play pack from home, correct?" "Yes, she did." "And you say you've never seen it in our store before, correct?" "Yes, you don't sell them here. I haven't seen them once, and I don't appreciate being talked to like this." At this, I flip the package over and point to the bright yellow sticker that clearly says, "Store name, $5. Her face goes pretty red, so I offered to let her add it to her transaction or leave it here, because it was most definitely not her daughter's. In the end, she left it at the store after walking out, saying many words that should not have been said in front of her kid. Thankfully, she was still asleep. It honestly sucks because people think they can get away with all kinds of crap at our location because we don't have security, just observant cashiers. I was actually told during my training to not confront shoplifters, which makes me so angry. There's nothing I hate more than dishonesty, and it makes me wonder how many people I've sent off with a smile had stolen items in their pockets. Speaking of 5 and under stores, what's your favorite store? Please let me know. Next we've got fired because a Karen lies. When I was about 18, I was working for X Home Improvement. I won't be giving out their name because I don't want it to backfire on me. I had been a cashier there for about a year and was top dog in terms of extended protection plans and MDA donations. MDA is Muscular Dystrophy Association. This isn't all that important to the story, but feeds into why I still hold a grudge against the store for it. I had been homeless for most of the time I maintained this job. I was 19 at the time, but I finally had gotten a home because my grandparents moved close to my work and offered to let me stay with them to save up money, and I took that offer. I had gone to work on a day like just about any other and was my normal goofy self. I would sing along with songs that played overhead, jokingly dance, and goof around with my coworkers. I see a lady coming toward the registers, so I flag her down to let her know I'm open, and she enters my lane. This is the Karen, by the way. Not knowing she was a Karen, I decided to try and joke around a little bit. I was standing there holding my scale gun in a James Bond pose, pretending to sweep the area with it. Not actually pressing the button, but just like a spy would when clearing a room. And then I hear it. "Excuse me? Why the heck are you pointing that thing at me?" Me: "I'm sorry? Why are you threatening me with that?" "Ma'am, I'm not intending anything as a threat. I apologize if you mistook my actions, but I was just goofing around with some of my coworkers while I was waiting for you to pull up to my register." "Well, don't ever do that again." I apologized to her and went about scanning her items. Just a few odds and ends and a rug. I carried on with my day as she seemed fine. She walked out of the door with a huge smile on her face, and I thought I had done a good job. I get a call from my manager telling me to report to the HR office immediately. I'm a little concerned, asking myself if it could be about the lady. I didn't know what was going on, but I maintained a positive attitude. My dad always says, think positive and positive things will come your way. I get there and the door cracked open. I push it lightly and see the store manager and the assistant manager as well as the HR lady sitting there. Store manager: "OP, please have a seat." Assistant manager: "Would you please read him the complaint?" Assistant manager just kind of glares at me before reading the paper he had in his hand. "Well, we had a lady call up here about 20 minutes ago, absolutely bawling her eyes out, saying that you threatened her. She said you pointed the scanner at her. She stated when you were asked to stop that you glared at her and threatened her, calling her really mean names, and saying that you were going to track her down after you got off of work. I was in utter shock. My heart sank to my stomach, and tears began to well up in my eyes. I could not believe somebody would lie to someone about me like this. They made me seem like I belong in some hillbilly horror movie. I knew what was coming, and I tried to reason with them, but I couldn't convince them to be on my side. They are hard believers in the Karen mantra, the customer is always right. Store manager. OP, I understand that you're upset right now, but you cannot say these things to a customer. Now, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. Leave your name tag and your vest here with us. You have 10 minutes to collect your things. After you leave here today, you are banned from the premises for 15 months. I ripped my name tag and vest off and just threw it on the ground, trying to get out of there before they started. I walked down to the nearest grocery store parking lot and sat on a natural hill for hours, crying because I had been so harshly blindsided. I wouldn't even get to tell my side of the story. They fired me on a Class A violation, which means I am not hireable by any ex-improvement store in the country. I wound up getting a job at Walmart, which was also ended because of an entitled Karen. I'll post it later if you guys want. They didn't even review the footage because I know if they had, they wouldn't have fired me. Sadly, there isn't a satisfying end to this one. It's just a tale of getting done over by a Karen. I hope you all enjoyed the read. Next we've got Entitled Kid Gets Me to Remake a Logo 8 Times. I used to have an Instagram account where I would remix songs and edit photos. Usually the things I would make were related to popular movies and gaming. One day, I get a message from someone in some kind of gaming clan. He wanted me to make a logo for his clan. I didn't post or advertise for making logos, but I'm guessing that he assumed I could make logos based off the other stuff I posted, which I could. I made him a decent logo that took around 15 minutes to make and sent it to him. He set it as his profile picture and didn't say anything. An hour later, he notified me that the clan name had changed and he wanted me to make a new logo. Here's how the conversation went. Entitled Kid. I need you to make a different logo for new name. Me. I thought the name was old name. Nah, new name is better. So, I made him another logo, which took another 15 minutes and sent it to him. After that, he was happy. For 5 minutes. He used the new logo as his profile picture for 5 minutes, and then told me he changed the clan name again. I spent 5 minutes making him another logo and sent it to him. Rinse and repeat 5 more times, each time the logo getting worse. Here was conversation on the 8th logo. Entitled Kid. Why is it so bad? Me. Why did you change the clan name repeatedly after I made you a logo? It's your fault. The logos are so bad. Really? You didn't pay me anything. I did this just to help. If you were expecting something amazing, you should have paid someone to make the logos. Just remake the last logo and I won't be mad. I just blocked him after this. Absolutely ridiculous. Karen gets owned in a coffee shop. This is not my story, but my daughter's, her friends, an awesome staff guy, and the owner/manager of the coffee shop. They all had a blast telling it. About 7 years ago, my daughter met a new friend while skiing, and they hit it off instantly. We have since become really good friends with the family. They are rich, R-I-C-H, as in private jets, a full staff, etc. Luckily for us, their daughter loves to ski with my daughter. I ski with the dad, moms ski together, and they take us on amazing ski vacations that I could never afford in my life. Jet in, stay in ridiculous houses, best food, staff driving us around, etc. They are awesome, hardworking, and pretty humble people considering how much money they have. So this past Saturday, my daughter and her friend got to the hill early and went to the coffee shop, ordered coffee, and asked about Wi-Fi. Sure enough, there was Wi-Fi, and they were directed to where the info is. Walk over to the sign, and it's being blocked by some woman who was leaning against it. My daughter, excuse me, could you please move over a bit so I can see the Wi-Fi info behind you? Karen, no, I am waiting for my son's hot chocolate and my latte. I will move when I get my drinks. Now, my daughter and her friend are dressed as typical park rat ski kids with 2 big pants, hoodies, etc. Up walks the staff guy. Let's call him Joe. Joe is about 6'4", 250 pounds, and an ex-Special Forces guy. Not someone you should ever mess with. Joe: Ma'am, just move a bit so she can see the Wi-Fi code.
Karen: Listen, I paid a lot of money to come here for a vacation. I will move when my drinks are ready.
Admittedly, the place was quite crowded. President's Weekend is one of the most crowded times at ski areas, but she could have moved a couple of feet.
Joe: Oh, you paid a lot of money to be here, huh? Well, this girl definitely paid more. Last night she flew in on a private jet. Her family has multiple suites rented at our most expensive hotel right here on the mountain. They have booked 4 private instructors for the day. Heck, I bet their dinner last night cost more than your whole vacation. How do I know this? I am her driver and also personal protection. So since this is based on how much people paid to be here, get the heck out of the way of the sign.
Karen:
You can't talk to
Joe: I can talk to you any way I want. I've been in the world's worst heck holes with people trying to hurt me. You don't scare me. What are you going to do? Cry on me? Manager from behind the bar in a totally condescending tone: Lady, just move out of the way. Your drinks will be out soon.
Karen: Don't call me lady. You can't speak to me that way.
Manager: Listen, Karen. I am the manager and also the owner. You will get your drinks, and after that, you will never come in here again. A person who will not move 2 feet for a kid is not the kind of customer I want. If I see you in here again, cops will be called. Later in the morning, their group got to cut Karen and family off in line as they were ski school. Ski kids get priority, as they should when you are shelling out almost $1,000 a day. They then waited at the top, and my daughter carved right in front of Karen with her twin tips, which throw a huge rooster tail of snow right into Karen. I heard this at lunch and immediately decided I needed a coffee before going back out and booked it to the coffee place. I had a description of the owner/manager, so I immediately sought him out. Me: Hey, I heard you got a woman to move so my daughter could see the Wi-Fi sign earlier today. Manager: Yeah, that lady was a real jerk. Me: Did you really call her a Karen?
Oh yeah, she was the definition of a Karen.
Me: Reddit? Manager, laughing his butt off: Definitely. That is where I learned about the Karens. Me: So where should this go? I was thinking about r/entitled parents. Manager: What is that sub? I'm just usually in the service-related ones. Me: When you get home, crack open a beer and have a look. I think you will love it. It is definitely where this story is going. Have you ever been skiing, or how about snowboarding? Please let me know. And while you're at it, please give the video a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Next we've got Threaten My Roommate? Enjoy failing your class. During my second year in college, I lived with 3 friends in a house that had another 4 guys living on the other side of the house. The 2 sides of the house had a lot of mutual friends, as my roommates had known them from high school. So we had tons of parties together during the year and got along pretty good, until a few months before final exams. Each side of the house had its own electric, water, and cable bills, which we paid separately. I always handled our bills and paid them each month, but our water bill was actually in my roommate's name. I'll call him Bird. So one day, the biggest jerk on the other side of the house, La Jerk, who handled their bills, walked into our house when I wasn't there and confronted Little Bird and yelled at him saying we owed him over $500. Apparently, their water bill each month was about $125 and ours was $40 to $50. La Jerk thought there had to be a mistake in the billing, so we should split the bills down the middle. After I was told about this confrontation, I contacted the water company and asked about the billing. I was told over the phone the bills were specifically split up to each side of the house, but a person would come out to check the water meters. The next day, a technician stopped by and looked at the meters to make sure they were operating correctly and that they were billing to the separate sides of the house. He confirmed there wasn't an issue with the meters or billing and basically said they are probably using more water. End of story. I told my roommates about this, but because of my schedule, I didn't see La Jerk for about a week. During that time, he confronted Little Bird a couple more times, who told him about the water company's position, but again, he was yelled at inside our own house,
and was again told that we needed to split the bills with them. Then the weekend comes. My roommates and I head to a house party hosted by some mutual friends. At some point during the party, I was in the front yard when a friend runs up to me and says LeJerk is trying to fight Little Bird. We run to the backyard, and through about 50 people, I can see LeJerk with his roommates behind him in the middle of the circle, pushing Bird, yelling that he owes him money, and he throws him into a beer pong table where he had held him down, saying he was going to beat Bird up. I nearly lose my mind as I see this and immediately grab LeJerk, say a few choice things, and shove him away. I wanted to do more, but it wasn't worth it. Yet. So LeJerk and I actually had a class together. We weren't friends, never sat together, and since the whole water bill incident, we never even looked at each other in the 500-person lecture. He always sat with one of his roommates, and I sat with one of my best friends, Rose. As the water bill fight somewhat subsided and the final exam got near, LeJerk and his roommate started to act more civil and would even make small talk to Rose and I in the hall about the final worth 75% of the grade, topics to study, blah blah blah. They knew Rose and I had A's in the class. It wasn't a very difficult class, but I enjoyed it and actually studied quite a bit and knew I'd probably get an A, and maybe I had let Rose cheat off me in the first test. I told Rose I had a feeling LeJerk and his roommate were up to something since they were being so nice, and that I expected them to try and cheat off us. So I came up with a plan if they tried. Now the format of the test is important. It was a packet of questions with the answers A, B, C, and D listed vertically, and then you transfer your answers to a bubble Scantron, which is another sheet of paper that gets put through a machine. Not sure how familiar people are with it. With this format, I told Rose that I would circle an answer, she would look over and circle the same answer, with a big circle, ensuring that anyone looking could see. We would do this for the entire 100-question final before marking our answers on the Scantron. The key to the revenge plan was that the actual answer was always going to be the answer directly below the circled answer. So if we circle A, the answer we put on the Scantron is B. If the circled answer is D, the answer we put is A. For a few days, I kind of thought I was being weird and crazy to come up with this plan because there was no way this guy actually thought he would cheat, and I was blinded by anger. Either way, when the day of the final exam came, we got to the room early, and I sat on the far right seat of a row with Rose to my left. Guess who strolls in and decides to sit next to us for the first time all year after he threatened my best friend a month before? Oh yeah, LeJerk. Dude had no shame and snuggled right in the seat next to Rose with his roommate next to him. Rose and I could barely believe it and had to use some serious composure before the test started. The two of us operated like a well-oiled machine. We circled our answers large, and at the end we went back through and marked the correct answers onto the Scantron. During the test, we could both see LeJerk and his roommate leaning and copying our circled answers. Unreal. Fast forward to the summer break, and LeJerk's roommate came over to our side of the house when he saw Rose was there with me. He opened a beer and chatted for a bit before he finally got to what we were waiting for. So, how did you guys do on that test? I remember looking at Rose and saying something like, I don't remember exactly, but I know I ended up with an A in the class, and she chimes in saying, yeah, that sounds about right, because I got a 92 on the test. The look on his face told us everything we needed to know, and he mumbled out, really? LeJerk and I both failed and have to take the class again. Next we've got, I literally can't help you when I'm not at work. So some background. I currently work for a retailer, one of the big 4 cell companies I'll refer to as Celltown, in a small country town. We try to emphasize customer service, but there's a point where the yelling just becomes too much. I'll refer to the demon of this story as Carrie, though I didn't get her name. And of course, I'll refer to myself in the first person. I had closed the shop about an hour before the events of this story, so I was still in my company polo as I browsed the aisle of a store with a yellow star that I'll refer to as All-Mart. Then this shorter lady walked up to me, seemingly pleasant. Carrie. Excuse me, do you work at Celltown? Me. Yes, ma'am, though I just closed the store an hour ago. Oh, all right.
I just wanted to see if you could help me pay my bill.
Me. Oh, well, if you have the Carrier's app, you can pay through there. Carrie.
Oh, great. I'll have to download that.
After that, I smiled and wished her well. Feel free to come by, blah blah blah, the usual customer service stuff. I ended up grabbing what I needed from the store and went to the register, where I ended up talking with an old coworker as I worked at Allmart years before I joined Celltown. As I was just about to put my card in the reader to pay, Carrie runs up in a huff. Carrie.
Excuse me, there's a problem with my bill.
She shows me her phone.
This is $30 higher than what I normally pay.
Me. Oh, well, if you come in tomorrow, we can… She cuts me off.
I don't want to come in tomorrow. Help me now.
My eyes widened at her abruptness. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't help you without my company tablet, I say, paying for my stuff and putting my bags in my cart.
Well, go get it.
Me. I can't. The shop is locked and closed. Once we close for the night, we can't go back in until we reopen. Carrie.
Well, you have to make an exception. I need help now.
Me. Like I said, I can't without…
Oh, shut up.
She shoved me. I typically can deal with an angry customer, but once things get physical, I try to end things as soon as possible. I give a smile down at the lady and nod. Me. You're right. I'm sorry. I'll be right back with my tablet. Just give me a few minutes.
You better hurry.
I gave her my fake phone number, which is just a hotline that plays All Star by Smash Mouth. After that, I left with my things and went home. I haven't seen Carrie since our exchange from about a week ago. My friend messaged me saying she was kicked out of Allmart a few minutes later, apparently for trying to steal some Celltown gift cards. Leads me to think that she did normally pay about $30, but was trying to get it taken off for the month. But oh well, at least I haven't had to deal with her since. Which cell company do you use? Please let me know. Next we've got Dramatic Idiot Thinks He Ate Something Toxic. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Last month, I started working at a store that caters to rural farmers. In the store, we have everything from feed for livestock to candy and clothing. It truly has a little bit of everything. I'm not rural myself, but I quite dig it. I say this because I see now that we get all types of customers. Sure, we mostly get people that have acres of land and livestock that need tending. We also get families coming in for pet food and clothing. There's no one that can't find anything at our store. Oh, and we give free popcorn to all of our customers. This detail will be important for this story. One day I'm talking to a coworker about how his day is going and stuff. You know, just BSing and stuff. That's when a customer on his cell phone comes over in a huff and asks, "Where are the restrooms?" Not an uncommon question. They're in the back of the store and not clearly labeled, so we get that a lot. My coworker explains from where we're standing. If you head straight back, they're behind the car batteries. Pretty simple and effective explanation. Not for this guy. He shouts, "I don't know where that is." I step in and say, "Sir, let me show you." I walk the man straight back, behind the car batteries, and lead him there. He says, "Thank you," and moves on. Or so I thought. As I walk around the store helping customers, I see this man at our service desk talking to one of the managers. I don't think too much of it, so I keep going about my business. I come back to the desk, and I see our store manager, head honcho, dealing with him as well. So immediately, I can see this guy is probably being just as high maintenance with them as he was with us about the restrooms. The store slows down, and I get curious. I meander around the service desk so I can kind of eavesdrop. What I gathered is this. The man was walking around with his bag of free popcorn. He picked up a chemical pond cleaner that uses a blue dye. He got some of the dye on his hands, didn't notice somehow, and continued to eat the popcorn. Once he noticed the dye on his hands, that's when he promptly began to freak out about anything and everything. Apparently, when we caught him on his way to the restroom, he was going to the facilities to induce vomiting, to excise whatever he thinks he ingested. Then he went to the front and began to raise heck. He had our managers on the phone with local health officials, our SDS team that handles our chemical incidents, and the manufacturer of the pond cleaner. He had our managers running the gauntlet for him. The man had his phone out taking pictures of everything. The department manager he was working with said to him, "Make sure you get a picture of the bottle and where it says non-toxic." I didn't see his response, but I'm sure he was less than pleased with that remark. The situation escalated even further when he walked away from the service desk with our store manager following him close behind. The man shouted to the entire store, "This man threatened me. He made a threat to my well-being." Now, my store manager is a big teddy bear of a guy, Southern gentleman, doesn't have a malicious bone in his body, so we could all smell the drama and deceit coming off of this guy. After shouting that my store manager threatened him, the man finds me, looks at me, points at me directly and says, "Sir, you were there and helped me find the restroom. Did you see any chemical on my hands?" I shook my head and answered honestly, "Sir, I'll be honest. I wasn't looking or paying attention to your hands, so I can't say for certain what was on your hands." He went back to his phone call and walked away to another part of the store. That's when we all saw emergency services and EMTs enter the building with equipment to take someone out on a gurney. I couldn't believe it reached this point. The man was being overdramatic and completely irrational. That's when I walked away from the situation. The drama seemed to die down entirely, so I made my way to another side of the store where we have boots and shoes. One of my coworkers stopped me and said, "Hey man, if you have a weak stomach, I wouldn't walk over there." I was confused. I asked what's over there. "Is it puke?" I asked, thinking the guy with the blue dye tried to vomit again. He said, "Nope, it's blood." My coworker walked away before I could pry for further details. As it turns out, while this man was causing a commotion because he may have consumed a little bit of a non-toxic blue dye, there was another customer on the other side of the store that had a seizure, causing him to fall and hit his head on a set of shelves. That's why the EMTs and emergency vehicles arrived at our store, not for some pompous drama that didn't need to happen. All I could think after that is I hope this guy felt like a royal jerk for making all this fuss over some nonsense while another human being that truly needed medical attention was lying in distress not even 50 feet away from him. Next we've got, insurance company didn't approve tests requested by my doctor, ends up losing my company. The company I work for provides free insurance for all employees. I've been working in my company as a finance manager for 13 years, and the company has been dealing with a famous insurance company for the last 10 years, providing insurance policies for employees. In the span of 10 years, I think I must have used my insurance 3 times. I'm a young man, healthy and athletic, and didn't really face any health problems. That all changed a couple of months ago when I suddenly gained too much weight and I started having some breathing difficulties. So I went to my doctor who, after the checkup, asked me to do a normal blood test, a cholesterol test, and a vitamin D test. No problem, my insurance will take care of that, or at least that's what I thought. When I submitted the application for approval, they approved the blood test only. I was furious. I went ahead and did all the tests and paid for the ones that the insurance didn't approve. After that incident, I called the broker, who by the way I personally know, and told him what happened. He started making up excuses and defending the insurance company. At the end of our conversation, I told him one thing. Make sure to tell them that this mistake will cost them a lot. My company will not renew the contract with them. He started laughing and replied, "It's not up to you to decide if the contract will be renewed or not." I told him, "Oh yes it is." What they didn't know is that my company asked me a couple of days earlier, since I'm the finance guy, to try to find another insurance provider that will give us the same benefits for less, or to get a better deal from the same provider. At first, I really didn't want to find another provider, since we've been dealing with that company for 10 years. I thought I would be able to get a better price from them. It all changed that Friday afternoon. After the weekend, I started searching for another insurance provider. I got multiple offers and made a comparison table between the current company and all other offers. After 3 weeks of searching and negotiating, I was able to narrow it down to one provider who will give the same benefits for 30% less. I was ecstatic. During the next board meeting, I made a presentation for the shareholders. They were happy that this will save them a lot of money. I'm not going to give exact figures, but the contract itself is in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars. After all was agreed, and when the renewal date came, you should have seen the look on the old insurance provider's face when they became aware of what happened. They asked for a meeting in our office,
and they offered to give us a 25% discount for us to stay with them. I declined the offer with a smile on my face and said this would be impossible now because the new contract was signed already. Karen Jr. versus T-Mobile. About 15 years ago, I was the acting manager for a mobile phone shop in the UK. It was a third-party retailer that sold all networks but has since been bought out and no longer exists. This girl, around 12 to 14, came in and asked about a cheap prepaid phone that we stocked. Can't remember which one, but it was the cheapest one we had, like £30. We had some in stock, so I started going through its details when she said she needed it on the O2 network. We only stocked that particular phone on T-Mobile, so I told her no and started suggesting some O2 phones we had that were almost as cheap. The following is not verbatim, but as close as I can remember. Cast: we've got her and we've got me. Her: but this phone is dual band. Me: yes. So, does that mean it can take 2 SIM cards? No, that means it uses 2 frequency bands. All phones sold in Europe, most of Africa, and Asia are at least dual band. Prepaid phones are heavily discontinued by the networks, so they're locked to only working with their own SIMs. Her: no, my friend said it means it can take 2 cards. Me: sorry, but that's not what it means. If you put your O2 SIM in that, it won't work. You can get it unlocked, but it voids the warranty and usually causes problems, so I don't recommend it. But my friend said it will work. Is this a school friend? Yes. Okay, well, I work in a phone shop. I think it's safe to say I know more about phones than your friend does. I promise you, if you put a non-T-Mobile SIM card in that phone, it will not work. I tell her that she could port her number across or get the cheapest O2 prepaid one we had for about £50. Her: okay, don't worry about it then. She turns and leaves, and I never see her again? Sadly, no. About an hour later, she comes back and says she wants to purchase that T-Mobile phone. Me: okay, so you know this won't work on O2? Yeah, sure. Okay, just so you know, all T-Mobile products are not included in our 14-day change of mind policy. Yeah, fine. So, once you've bought it, there's no refund. Yeah, fine. Okay then. I sell the phone and then she leaves forever? Wouldn't be interesting if she did, would it? Another hour goes by and she comes back. There's something wrong with my phone. It's not working. Oh, really? I usually ask for symptoms, etc. at that point, but I already knew what the issue was. Have you guessed what it is? I took the back and battery off, and lo and behold, nestled in the SIM card slot was an old, battered O2 SIM card. Me: well, there's your problem. You put your old SIM card in there, not the T-Mobile one that came with it. I swapped the cards over, reassembled it, and showed her it working. Her: but I don't want it on T-Mobile. Me: it only comes on T-Mobile. I did tell you this earlier. Fine. I'll have my money back then. No, you won't. What? I did tell you that there's no change of mind on this before I sold it to you. But I don't want it. Sorry, can't help you. Is there a manager I can talk to? I am the manager. You can call T-Mobile and port your number or get it unlocked. But again, I don't recommend that. Her: But, fine. Grabs her stuff and leaves for the last time. Now I could have refunded this for her using the manager's override, as the point of sale typically wouldn't give a refund option for T-Mobile. But this got flagged to the area manager and I'd have to justify it later. Frankly, I didn't want to, and I felt like I had given her more than enough warning. If you were in this position, would you have given her a refund? Or would you have told her to buzz off like OP did? You know what to do. Go ahead and leave a comment letting me know. Next we've got, entitled Mom ruined my birthday dinner with my boyfriend. So a little bit of backstory. Around 6 months ago, I met my boyfriend and we moved together to his apartment shortly after. Our relationships are the best thing that happened to both of us. We are beyond happy together. He met my parents not so long ago and it went very well. But then it was time to meet his mother. He was always telling me stories about what a horrible person she is. and that her own mother, my boyfriend's grandmother, has no clue how my boyfriend lived with her for so long. We were invited to her birthday party, and it went pretty okay, but I felt what he was talking about. She was pretending to be very nice, and it was obviously fake. But anyway, on to the actual story. A month ago, it was my birthday. I was turning 20, but I didn't want a big celebration or a party, so we thought that me and my boyfriend will prepare a small dinner for two and have our romantic time. So we did. In the middle of the cooking process, my boyfriend's phone rings. It's entitled Mom, and she's saying that she's behind the door. We just stood there in shock, in complete silence for a good 10 seconds before she yelled, "Hello!" And my boyfriend said that he would open it in a minute. I was like, what the heck is she doing here? But I thought this would be fine. She didn't tell us that she is coming, so maybe she wouldn't stay for that long. So my boyfriend invites her to the kitchen where I am cooking some pasta with seafood, and she immediately started to congratulate me and her "I am so nice" kind of vibe, and she hands me 2 bottles of champagne. Really cheap ones, but okay, not gonna judge. Then she takes a seat, and the dialogue goes like this. "So, what are you cooking?" Me. "Pasta with seafood." "Oh, I don't like those. My stomach aches after seafood. Did you prepare something else for me?" At this point, me and my boyfriend are looking at each other in disbelief. Boyfriend, "Are you planning to stay for a long time?" Entitled Mom. "Of course! I came to congratulate OP on her birthday and have a drink." Well, we weren't that happy about it, but I decided to brush it off and let her be, 'cause we still had a night for us. So I made her the same pasta as we were eating, but without seafood. Luckily, she was happy with it. So the casual conversation goes, she mainly is talking to my boyfriend because I am browsing through my phone. We thought we could look through some websites at dinner together because we decided to adopt a dog. So I was doing that, and then I showed one of the dogs to my boyfriend. Entitled Mom's eyes got wide and she almost screamed. "Are you going to adopt a dog?" Me. Yes. Why?" She shrugged and looked at boyfriend. "I thought you hated animals. Son, you never liked our dog and cat. Why do you suddenly change your mind?" Side note, her dog is a nightmare. Not trained at all, barking uncontrollably at everyone, bad behavior, etc. Cat, on the other hand, is very sweet and cuddly. Boyfriend. "What do you mean? Since when do I hate animals? Also, it's your dog, and you said you would never give me my cat when I was moving out." Entitled Mom. "Because I thought you hate her." It was silent during the discussion, and we changed the subject after this. Then she said she wanted to buy the country house and move there. Boyfriend started to explain that it's not that easy, and she needs a lot of money. Besides, she has a perfectly fine flat, which is not that close to the city center, and it should be fine. Entitled Mom. "God, I know that it's a lot of money, which is why I thought you can sell your flat and move to mine, so I can buy a house. Yours is bigger and nicer. You don't need that much space." Boyfriend. "Obviously, we need that much space. We have 2 cats and we'll have a dog soon. I absolutely will not sell my flat." Entitled Mom looked at me, hiding anger inside. "We'll talk about it later." The rest of the dinner was fine, except for the fact that she drank almost all of the champagne that she brought and constantly bragged about animals. She left pretty late, and our mood was ruined for the rest of the night. Yesterday, she called my boyfriend, and they talked for a good half an hour. I was working in the other room in front of my computer. I heard screaming and loud arguing. My boyfriend is absolutely not the type of person who gets angry or upset easily, but this woman has a superpower to do that. So after my boyfriend hung up on her, he was fuming and entered the room I was in. He told me that she was talking crap about me, that I am changing him in a bad way, that he is not the son she raised. Very funny. She also said that I am the worst girlfriend that she can ever imagine, that I am manipulative and stupid, and that when she said he doesn't need so much space, she meant he should dump me and I would move out with all my animals. I was furious. We agreed that it's none of her business what we are doing with our lives, and we decided not to talk with her at all. Next we've got no air conditioning, enjoy the fines. Back in 1993, I had just graduated from college. Since there weren't any jobs anywhere near my hometown, I moved to the Dallas area. I had a small bit of money left from college, but I knew it wouldn't last. I found and rented the cheapest apartment that I could find. A bit of background on this apartment complex. It used to be a nice complex, and it used to be in a nice area. That was no longer the case. The area was completely run down, with most people either being unemployed, like me, or doing some sort of menial job. The actual apartment was not really an apartment. The original design for the complex had mainly 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartments. At some point, they took the master bedroom, one of the bathrooms, and one of the closets and made that into a separate apartment. They called it an efficiency. I'm sure some of you are reading that and trying to figure out where the kitchen was located. Short answer, it wasn't. The kitchen was the closet. It had been a small walk-in closet. They put an actual apartment-sized refrigerator in it with a microwave on top of it. That was the kitchen. I didn't particularly like it, but I was broke. What could I do? I was looking for jobs for a few months and having no luck. I spent much of my time in that little apartment. The trouble came in March. It started getting really hot. By mid-April, I felt like I was cooking during the day. My apartment had air conditioning, but it was blowing nothing but hot air. I went to the manager to complain. I was told that they didn't turn on the compressor until June. No way I would be able to make it until June. I had to do something. I found a way to keep cool. One of the few places with working air conditioning that didn't mind me loitering was the public library. We were actually close to a huge branch. I could grab a book and just sit there for hours, but it was still stifling when I went home. Since I was at the library anyway, I started doing research on apartment regulations. It wasn't too difficult. Heck, I had essentially done the same thing for years as a full-time student. It was just research. The housing codes were located in a row of large books back before the internet. I had nothing better to do, so I started going through them. After a few days, I found some things that I thought might help and called the housing authority. They came right over to my apartment the next day actually. Infraction 1. If the temperature with the apartment was above a certain level, air conditioning had to be available. I think it was 80 degrees, but it was 83 degrees in my apartment when they showed up. Infraction 2. All apartments, regardless of size, had to have a working stove. Remember, I only had a microwave, which was not considered a stove. Infraction 3. All apartments, regardless of size, had to have a working sink in the kitchen. Again, remember, I didn't have a sink in the kitchen. I had to wash what few dishes I had in the bathtub. The housing authority people said they'd take care of it and left. Within another week, I got a notice from the apartment that they were going to put in a stove and sink. And best of all, the AC started getting cool. It didn't end there though. I was there when the workers were putting in the stove and sink. I was playing some video games. One of the workers saw it and started up a conversation since he liked video games. I found out some interesting things. First, the wiring wouldn't handle the stove, so they had to do something to get it to work. They put one hole in my apartment, and I heard them putting some more holes in the apartment next door. Don't forget, those two apartments used to be the same apartment. The fuse box was in the other apartment. Second, the flooring in the closet was carpeting. That was deemed unsafe to put a stove on, so they had to tear it out, just in the closet, and put down some type of tile. Third, the closet did not have any place to attach the sink, so they had to go through the wall again to get to the bathroom to connect the plumbing in there. I'm unsure how that worked, since directly on the other side of the wall was the bathtub. There was no exposed plumbing there. All told, these changes cost about $10,000, including parts and labor. I'm going by what I was told. I have no direct knowledge, and the guy giving me this information was one of the regular workers and not any sort of management. But I did find out one other thing. It wasn't just my apartment. It was all of the efficiency apartments, all 20 of them. If the numbers that I was given can be believed, that would be approximately $200,000. All because it was hot. Edit. I forgot this part. I got a notice from the housing authority a few weeks after they finished updating the apartment. The notice mentioned fines being levied. I don't have any additional information on the number or amount of the fines, but based on what I've heard about the housing authority in later years, it was probably substantial. Edit again. In response to one of the comments, I was curious and went to look up this old apartment. In '93 when I was there, the apartment was $485 per month. Now it's $615 per month, so it's still incredibly cheap for the area. They've upgraded it a bit. Now the kitchen, closet, has countertops and cabinets. There's a closet right off of the living area. There's even a blurb on the website that says all of our available homes come standard with air conditioning, fully equipped kitchens, ceiling fans, and carpeted living spaces. Of course, they don't say they were forced to add some of this stuff. Also, I was taken back by the size. The apartment is 274 square feet. I remember it being a tiny apartment, but I had forgotten how tiny. Next we've got Karen and her spawn in a pet store. This happened not too long ago when me and my friend, Elle, went to go get some dog food for the many dogs he and his boyfriend have. Elle has 3 Akitas and his boyfriend has 5 Burmese mountain dogs and a black and tan Pomeranian. As you can tell, they love dogs. He got me to come along because he was buying a lot of dog food and he needed help carrying all of the bags. Plus, boyfriend can't go with him right now because his right leg is in a leg brace and his middle, ring, and pinky finger on his right hand are still healing from when he broke them. Cast, we've got me, we've got Elle, my friend, we've got Karen, we've got Karen's kid, who was around 12, we've got the employee, we've got Cop 1 and Cop 2. Me and Elle were walking around trying to find the dog food he wanted. It's not a big store, but whoever designed it made it into a maze. Elle had his dogs with him in the back of the car, but he brought one of them into the store because she was begging and barking to come out. Her name is Lily. So we let her come with us, but I was the one walking her. I noticed there was only 2 other people in the store, Karen and her kid. We grabbed around 6 of these big bags of dog food and we were walking over to the cash register. I put the bags of food I was holding on the counter and went over to play with the bird. It's a sulfur-crested bird, and it's extremely super friendly, so the employees let people play with it. Karen's kid. Excuse me. I turn around, and there was Karen's kid standing there with a big smile on his face. Me. What's up? Entitled kid. Can I pet your dog? Me. It's not my dog, but I'll ask my friend if it's okay. Elle, can this kid pet your dog? Sure, I don't mind. Entitled kid begins to pet her, and I'm still playing with the bird when Karen comes over. Karen. Oh, your dog is so cute. Me. It's my friend's dog, not mine. I pointed towards Elle at the cash register. He didn't notice me talking because he was talking with the cashier. Entitled kid. Mom, can I have the dog? Friend and I looked at each other and made direct eye contact when we heard the kid say this. It's not our first time dealing with Karens and their entitled brats. I put the bird back in its cage and walked up to Elle with Lily. Karen turns to friend. How much for the dog? Friend. OP, I need help carrying these. I grabbed the dog food I was carrying before. Karen. Are you going to answer me? Friend. She's not for sale. Karen's kid. Mom, I want the dog. Don't worry, you'll have the dog in a second. We began to walk over towards the door, but before we could get out of the store, Karen blocked the doorway. She looked ticked off at us. I said, how much for the dog? And I said she's not for sale. Now please leave us alone. No, I want that dog. This is when the cashier, employee, came into the argument. Employee. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to let them leave the store. No, I'm buying that dog. Friend. No, you're not. Employee. If you don't leave them alone and leave the store, I will call the police. Entitled kid. Mom, I want the dog. Give me the dog. Give me the dog right now. Friend. If you don't move out of our way right now, I will make you. Is that a threat? No, it's a promise. I'm not letting you out of this store until you give my son the dog. She then swung at Elle. And at this point, I was wondering if she was insane, because Elle is 6'5" and 250 pounds of pure muscle, and she was around 5'7" and looked to be around 160 pounds. Elle dropped one of the bags he was carrying and grabbed her hand before she hit him. Entitled kid had run off at this point in time, and he was probably harassing some of the rabbits or guinea pigs or something of the sort. Elle. I said get out of our way. No, not until you... She was cut off when Elle dropped the other bag of dog food he was holding onto the ground and picked her up off the ground by the back of her shirt. He then walked out of the doorway
and back into the store.
Put me down right now.
L. OP, can you go put the dog food in the trunk of the car? Me, half laughing. Yeah, I'll go do that. I then went and took the dog food that I was carrying and put it in the trunk. I went back and did the same for the dog food Elle was carrying and also put Lily in the car with the other Akitas. All the while, Karen was screeching like a banshee. An employee was astonished by what was happening. Me. Okay, I'm done. Elle then let go of Karen and she fell onto the floor. We were walking out of the door when Karen yells this.
I'm calling the police.
Elle turned around when he heard this. And I'll make sure to tell them the real story. And so will OP and employee. They'll tell them the same story I do. So who are they going to believe? An entitled jerk and her little spawn? Or the guy who was nearly punched?
They won't believe you because you assaulted me.
Employee. Actually, I already called the police. They're in the parking lot right now. We all looked over, and sure enough, there's a police car in the parking lot and 2 cops walking towards the store. They walked in. Cop 2 went over to employee for questioning, and Cop 1 came over to question us. And that is when Karen went into full victim mode.
Thank God you're here. This man was trying to hurt me.
Cop 1. No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
Cop 1. When me and my partner got out of the car, we heard everything you said. That is when Karen went pale. Cop 2 called out to Cop 1, so he looked over at him, and so did the rest of us. What is it? Cop 2. Employee says she has a video footage of the incident. And with that, Karen went even paler than before. We all watched the footage, and we all turned to Karen. Cop 1 talking to L. Would you like to press charges? L. Absolutely. Cop 1. Ma'am, please turn around. I'm going to have to cuff you.
No, he assaulted me first.
Cop 2. Ma'am, turn around now. Karen then tries to run out of the door without her kid. They ran her down and arrested her, then called the kid's dad to come get him. She was charged, and I don't know if she got prison time. After all of that, me and Elle thanked employee for calling the police and went back to his place to play video games. The rest of the day went pretty good. Entitled mom tried to force me to spend $50 on her kid. I was at a Walmart, just looking to buy some small items real quick for an upcoming event. Plates, napkins, that sort of stuff. I go to check out when I notice a lady behind me. I don't say anything, but I can clearly see her digging through her purse with her left hand. I ignore it and keep waiting until it's my turn. Entitled mom.
Excuse me?
Me. Unsure who she's talking to, so I ignore it. Entitled mom.
Excuse me?
Me. Turning my head around. May I help you? Entitled mom.
Can I go in front of you? I only have 2 items.
I checked, and sure enough, she only had 2 items. Me. Sure, I guess. The lady casually walks past me as I attempt to awkwardly back up to give her space. I'm minding my own business, spacing out, when I notice I'm almost at the front of the line. Cashier. That'll be X amount of dollars. Entitled mom viciously digs around her purse.
I only have this much.
Hands over a couple dollars short by the looks of it. Cashier. I'm sorry, ma'am, but this isn't enough for your items.
Oh no, I promised my son I'd get him this toy.
Now, I don't know if anyone else would do this, but as soon as she said that, I instantly spoke. Me. I can pay the rest. Entitled mom.
Really? You don't have to.
Yes, she actually said it like that. Me. No worries, I'm sure your kid deserves it. Entitled mom, looking down at the items.
Can I swap this toy out for another?
Me. Sure. Entitled mom bolts off towards the other side of the store. I begin putting my stuff on the conveyor belt. I finish up and pay, which is exactly when entitled mom returns. She puts the new toy on the conveyor belt, along with her other item. The cashier begins scanning, and I patiently wait at the end. Cashier. That'll be insert stupidly high price for her 2 items. Me. Wait, what cost that much? Cashier. Well, you see, sir, the toy costs $50, and this cost $5. Me. The toy cost $50? Gazing at the entitled mom.
You said you would pay for it.
I meant if it was just a few dollars, not 50.
You promised.
First of all, no I didn't. Secondly, Who tries to ask a stranger for help and then proceeds to get something expensive? Me. I don't have that much cash on me.
But you said you would pay for me.
Me. If it was a reasonable price.
Are you paying or not?
No, not if it's that expensive. Entitled mom proceeds to shout at me. After I tune her out, she huffs and leaves the store without her stuff. I leave about 2 minutes after to be safe. The nerve of some people. Edit. I've noticed how many of you have been saying I should have never offered to pay. The only reason I offered to pay was because it was the cousin of one of my friends who I had met at a get-together. I never spoke to her. Either way, be careful out there. Would you ever offer to pay if you were in a situation like this? I'd really love to hear from you. Next we've got my branch manager fired and got 4 guys promotions. I worked as a security guard for a standard security company, but we were contracted with a petrochemical company to do security at their world headquarters. The company is a Fortune 500 company making billions a year. Therefore, the account we had meant that we did security for all of their locations inside the US, while other companies handled sites outside the US. This account was worth around $30 million per year. I joined the company in March and things seemed great. My shift was very workable, 10:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. I spent most of my day doing paperwork and signing in other contractors and delivery drivers. Honestly, it felt like a pretty decent job. It didn't pay very well, but you can't complain when you sit on your butt all day. However, soon we began having a staffing problem. People were leaving and getting fired way too quickly. We were supposed to have around 15 guards, but we got as low as 9. This did not include the 3 veteran guards employed by the client company as they were separate from us. This is very important later. This caused horrible schedules. In a 26-hour period, I worked 20 hours, which I later found out is illegal in our state. And we would easily put in 60-hour weeks. Every single guard was working overtime. It caused havoc with our personal lives. My girlfriend even told me she was thinking about leaving me because out of the entire week, I would see her maybe an hour a day before I fell asleep. And we lived together. So obviously, some compensation was required. Overtime was decent pay, yes, but we wanted an overall raise. We got paid way too little to be working 70-hour weeks, 12 to 16-hour shifts, etc. Each facility has a supervisor through the contractor company, and each set of facilities has a branch manager who supervises specific accounts for the regional manager. While the branch manager was supposed to visit each facility once a month, there are 3 facilities in his area on the account. I saw him twice in my 1-year period with the company. Apparently, the client company had a lot of pull in the state, so the security company was basically their lapdog, and they tried to keep their distance as much as legally allowed. The issue started when one of the guards, we'll call him Roy, started talking about how his friend who worked at the sister site and all of his fellow guards all got raises because they were short-staffed, and the company wanted to thank them for pulling extra hours. This got a lot of guards furious. We were much worse off with our staff, and we worked at the world headquarters, and none of us had even been suggested raises. This led to the guards being particularly unmotivated and led to people refusing to pick up shifts. So one of the senior guards decided to call the BM and complain, asking why the sister site would get raises and why we would not. Apparently, it was more of a rant than an actual conversation, but at the end of it, the branch manager promised he would look at getting our raises and that he would speak with the regional manager to get the raises going. When word of this reached the facility, it was one of the only things everyone could talk about. We would talk about how excited everyone was to get raises, and the branch manager had also promised that we would be getting new guards to help out, so no more 60+ hour work weeks. Everything was happy in our world for about 48 hours. When I get to work early on Thursday, I see an email addressed to all the security guards, and our branch manager is CC'd in it. He never gets copied in emails. The email said this: "Hello. As you are all aware of, all the rumors that have been brought to my attention have been addressed. I would like to take this time
and remind everyone not to engage in this activity again. Moving forward, bring all concerns to the attention of your immediate supervisor so they may be addressed. Spreading rumors and causing panic will be looked at as creating an uncomfortable/hostile work environment. Disciplinary action will be taken. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns about this matter. Also, make sure that your attention while on site is on our purpose. We should all be focused on the objective of providing the client with outstanding service. We were mad. Basically, we were being told that we weren't getting raises, and the branch manager claimed that the sister site getting raises was nothing but a rumor. Roy was berated for supposedly causing a panic, and since Senior Guard was the one that went over the supervisor and straight to the branch manager, he was being told his job was potentially on the line. Everyone was absolutely appalled, and one of the older guards quit on the spot. The company had basically flat out lied and made promises they had no intention of keeping, and we legally couldn't prove anything. And thus the revenge starts. We had the phone numbers to the sister site in the directory, but didn't know who the supervisor was over there. I asked Roy who his friend was that had worked there and if I could get into contact with him. Unfortunately, he had quit and joined the Air Force just days prior. At this point, I felt stuck, but I didn't want anyone to be done over by a company just because we were the little people. So I stuck my neck out, and using the phone in my office, I called the client of the sister site. The operator picks up, and I explain that I'm a guard at the headquarters and needed to speak with the supervisor of their site. The operator gladly puts me through. Frank answers the phone, and I explain who I am and why I am calling. I don't BS with him and just flat out ask the big question. Did their site get raises? They did, and then some. Turns out, not only did all their guards get raises, including himself, but they also received bonus checks for their hard work. I could barely speak. I couldn't tell if I was furious at how we had been treated or how thankful I was that Roy and Senior Guard weren't lying. I asked Frank very calmly, "Can I get that in writing?" The next morning, I asked for a meetup with the branch manager, the site supervisor, the client, and the 3 guards that were willing to show up. Myself, Roy, Senior Guard, and a random guard who was willing to be present. He was in the loop most of the time. The branch manager is annoyed by this meeting and demands to know what is going on. Senior Guard and I explain how we are here to address how employees were lied to and how we were being threatened because we wanted to be compensated just as much as the sister site. And on top of that, how all 4 of us would leave if this issue was not addressed. Client: "What are they talking about?" Branch manager: "We have made it clear that the rumors have been addressed and no such promises were made. This meeting is over." Me: "Not so fast, sir. There is one other person that would like to speak with you." And in walks the knight in shining armor, Frank. We watch in amusement as all the color drains from branch manager's face. He stands there completely still, not making a sound. Frank smiles in an almost predatory fashion as he knows the slaughter he is about to partake in. Client: "Who is this?" Frank: "I am the site supervisor for your other site. I have here documentation that not only did branch manager lie about my guards getting raises, but also a recorded phone call, being all calls from company phones are monitored, that has branch manager on record stating he was going to pursue seeking a raise for this site's guards." At this point, even I am speechless. I didn't know how he got a copy of the phone call between Senior Guard and branch manager, but he did, and was holding the transcript. The client goes from confused to angry, glaring at the branch manager. The branch manager is still standing there, white as a ghost, and now our site supervisor is staring at him in what looks like pure rage, mostly because he took the flak for the branch manager's lies. Branch manager: "How did you—" Client: "You're right, branch manager. This meeting is over. For you. Get out of my office." The branch manager glances at myself and Senior Guard in what looks like pure defeat and mopes out of the office. Client: "Frank, let me see what you have." Frank hands over all of the evidence and the client looks through it for about 5 minutes.
He finished going over it and closes the booklet and looks over at the site supervisor. "Did you know about this?" The site supervisor explains how he was simply doing what he was told and not to ask questions. He was ex-military, so that mindset was believable. After this, the client instructed all of us to go home and we would be given money for the shifts we were supposed to work, but instructed us to come back at 7 a.m. sharp the next morning and to meet in the conference room. We all show up the next day and we are greeted by the client and another younger lady who he explains to us is the financial manager of the whole company. The branch manager is also sitting there, but on the other side of the conference table. We sit down and she starts off by apologizing for the behavior of the branch manager and explained how they did not like this sort of thing. However, since he was a contractor, they could not legally hold him accountable. The branch manager seemed somewhat relieved by this, and my heart admittedly sank. She said we could file reports against him and they would confirm them, but they could not partake in any form beyond that. Then the financial manager gives the big but. She says her offer is that we can work for the client personally as in-house security and not contractors. They said they would hire all 4 of us on the spot and we could start working tomorrow. This included full benefits, a huge increase in pay, over $20 an hour, and 6 weeks of vacation time a year. However, the offer only stood while we were in the room. The branch manager is fuming as he has just lost 4 guards. Of course, we all accept. She makes it clear, however, that we aren't hired until the meeting is over. Then the financial manager's attention turns to the branch manager. She explains that since 4 guards had just quit, that he was now in severe violation of the contract due to lack of staff and that they were using the break clause to terminate the account effective immediately. The branch manager tried to argue, saying that stealing contractors with the intent of using a break clause in a contract is illegal, which it is. Her response is something like this: Financial manager: "You are correct, which is why these men are not currently employed by us. They left on their own accord and are unemployed. Since this is a severe violation of the contract, we will be dealing with this here and now." The branch manager is speechless at the perfectly deceptive and well-played loophole that the client company had just exploited, and was also told if they did decide to pursue a lawsuit, they would be allowed to legally bring the evidence of the contractor company's deception and blatant lies to its employees. The client and the financial manager spend the next 4 hours taking phone calls, and we can't leave the room. After they hang up on the phone for the last time, the client turns to the branch manager and explains calmly but firm, "Please step outside with me for a moment." He also gestures for myself and senior guard to stand up and follow them. We walk outside and the client smiles. "OP, senior guard, would you please, as my security officers, escort branch manager off-site? His company is no longer associated with us." We gladly escort him to his car. 3 years after this happened, and all 4 of us still work there. We heard from another guard that the branch manager was fired basically as soon as he got back to his company's headquarters, and Frank was offered the branch manager position. He apparently responded by handing them his resignation letter. He went to move on to another security company overseas, and last I knew, he had been in France for almost a year. Our site supervisor was moved to another facility, but still works for the company last I checked. We loved working for the client, and all 4 of us became good friends. We all work similar shifts, so every Friday after work, we all go to the bar and have a good time. We also became fairly close to the client, so he invites us over to his house for special occasions. And yes, the security director for a petrochemical company has it big. Thanks to my job, however, I was able to save my relationship, take great vacations, buy a brand new, at the time, Chevy Silverado, and buy an actual house. So, to sum things up, don't mess with the security guard. Next we've got Entitled Dad Demands a Puppy. This happened a week or 2 ago. We had these entitled parents come into the shelter with their brood of kids. When I say brood, I mean like 6 or 7. I couldn't keep count as they were running around the shelter, acting like it was a playground and freaking the dogs out and upsetting the staff. Entitled Mom never really said much, just kind of kept in the back on her phone.
Most of the interaction here was through the entitled dad, the focal point of the story. So they came in looking for a high-energy dog that is also good with kids. We asked them the basic questions, one of which is if they have other animals in the house. This is to gauge which dogs we can show them, as some dogs in our shelter will hurt another dog on sight. So we have to be careful. They have no other animals at home. We show them one of our young and very high-energy dogs that loves to play with people but hasn't liked other dogs in the shelter. We inform them of the dog's history as far as we know. They like the dog and adopt him, knowing full well that he needs to be an only dog. Now, days later, we get a litter of small lab puppies turned in. As we are getting them set up in kennels, in comes entitled dad, entitled mom, and the brood of kids with the dog we adopted out to them. They want to find the dog a friend. We tell them that the dog wasn't dog-friendly when he was here, and we reminded them we recommended he be an only dog. They want another dog, and the one they want just so happens to be one of the small lab puppies. At this point, the staff is looking at each other shocked because we know that this puppy would get hurt if the older dog just decided to grab it by the head and shake it. We try to tell them that the puppy is way too small and wouldn't be able to defend itself if it was attacked. Entitled dad scoffs and says that the older dog loves other dogs and plays with his neighbor's small dogs all the time. We tell entitled dad that while that may be, we cannot, in good conscience, adopt the puppy to them because of the older dog showing signs of aggression towards other dogs in the shelter. Now at this point, entitled dad is throwing a tantrum. He's demanding the puppy, and we simply tell him no and repeat our reasons why. It's at this point entitled dad says he wants to surrender the older dog and adopt the puppy then. We all look at him like the jerk that he is and tell him we are not going to do that. He storms outside with entitled mom and the brood, and entitled dad and entitled mom are arguing in the front yard of our shelter when a young couple walks by. The guy says something to entitled dad and points at the dog, and entitled dad says something back, and the guy shakes his hand and walks into our front office and tells us that entitled dad just tried to give the older dog away to them. We are beyond furious by now, and when entitled dad storms back in with a dog, he demands to surrender the dog. We say fine, and we take the dog back and set him up in a kennel, and then entitled dad demands to adopt the puppy. We once again tell him no, and entitled dad freaks out, demanding the older dog back while having a complete tantrum meltdown in our office. Because he didn't fill out the surrender paperwork, sadly, we had to give the older dog back because legally it was still his property. He storms back out of the office, and entitled dad and the brood leave with the older dog. It doesn't end there. The very next day, entitled dad comes back with the older dog by himself and once again demands to surrender the dog. Now, it's apparently because the dog bit one of his kids, and entitled dad rants about suing us, but we remind him that when we adopted the dog, it became his property and his responsibility. After we make sure he signs the dog over, he again demands the puppy. We tell him no again, and here's the big kicker. That morning, we got calls from his neighbors reporting him for leaving the dog locked in an outside cage night after night since entitled dad has had the older dog. The neighbors said that the dog rarely ever got to leave the cage despite almost freezing temperatures that week. We inform entitled dad that not only was he not getting the puppy, he wasn't getting the older dog back either. And now, he and his family were on a do not adopt blacklist for the state and wouldn't be adopting anything from anywhere from now on. Entitled dad just sits there in silence and storms out of the office and ran to his car. I've never seen someone so bent on getting out of here. Next we've got Karen demands I shop for her. Backstory. This happened a few hours ago. I was out with my mom for the afternoon. She has an arm injury from an accident, and I often help her out when I can. Today, I wore a Selena shirt and black leggings. The Walmart employees wore a store polo with the logo on it and khaki pants or shorts. So yeah, I wore nothing like the actual employees, and I am not a personal shopper. This happened right after we had ate a late lunch at a semi-nice restaurant. After we ate, we decided to head over to Walmart to get a couple of items. Like I said, my mom has an arm injury from an accident, and I was in the store with her helping her reach for items that she couldn't reach. We're in the store for a few moments. My mom sends me off to find some soda. I go into the soda part of the store, and I'm reaching for the soda when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I grab the soda and turn around thinking I'm in someone's way, and well, I kind of was. The lady, not really a Karen, pointed to the Coke. Her arms were pretty full. Why she didn't have a cart was beyond me. Karen, can you please get that Coke for me? Me, being ever polite. Yeah, sure. Your arms look pretty full. Do you need a cart? I was kind of hoping you could help me. I saw you helped that woman. Me. Oh, that's my mom. I came in to help her. She has an arm injury, and I was just helping her get a few things before I go home myself. Karen. But you helped her? I just gave her a look like, what are you talking about? Me. I mean, yeah, she's my mom. I kind of have to help her. So you're a personal shopper for her? Me, laughing at that statement. Since it was kind of true, I often stop and get things for my mom since my mom doesn't drive and my dad works late, and I live nearby. Me. Well, you got that part right. I'm sorry I can't help you right now. I have to get back to my mom. Well, get the rest of the items from my list. I shake my head. Me. Ma'am, I don't know how to tell you this, but I have to get back to my mom. I leave quickly, and I get back to my mother, and I tell her about the wild Karen encounter. My mom said I did the best I could, so we get to check out, and behold, Karen is behind us. She proceeds to tap my mother on the shoulder. My mother turns around and sees the Karen I was talking about. Karen. Hi. Yes, does she work for you? Mom. Yes, she has for 22 years. We have this ongoing joke that I was the maid in the family. Karen looks at me agape. It was like she was trying to process what my mom said. But she can't be that old. Mom. Nope, she's been 22. Been 22 since May. She's also my daughter, and we just stopped here to get a few things. Karen. But she helped me. Mom. Well, that's how I raised her. I'm happy she helped you, but we really need to get going. We check out and wave to the Karen, still looking very confused. Karen takes my credit card and gets upset when caught. Backstory. My husband and I have now been married for almost 18 years. My mother-in-law is the most entitled, choosing beggar I've ever known. I have many stories, so if y'all like this one, I will add more. First time posting, be nice please. Cast. We've got me, we've got hubby, and we've got mother-in-law. When my now husband and I were engaged, we had one credit card that we used for emergencies or small things. We were buying a house, getting married, so he paid it off so we would have it if needed for house. All good. Nope. Statement for the card came in and showed thousands of dollars in purchases, including Disney World tickets for 3, with all of the accoutrements, stereo system, clothes, computer and desk, several semesters of college for one of his younger brothers, and more. Hubby was mad, called credit card company, and they stated it was on his second card. He tried to explain he did not have a second card. That is when they revealed that he had signed for a second card on his application. Hint, he didn't. Apparently, entitled parent saw him put application in mailbox. He lived on grandparents' farm that had main house and a few trailers for family to live in. Once he left, she opened it and marked for a second card for herself and put it back in. So, prior to our engagement, hubby was paying almost all of entitled parents' expenses as he was the oldest of 5 and felt responsible for them. Dad divorced and stepdad left. Once we became engaged, and especially once I became pregnant, he told entitled parent he couldn't anymore as he had his own family to take care of now. Entitled parent did not take this well. She took that second card and took 2 siblings to Disney World and everything else listed above. Hubby stormed into entitled parent's kitchen and demanded the card. Some is paraphrased as this happened a while ago, but this is mostly how it went down. Hubby. Give me the credit card. Now! Entitled parent. What card are you talking about? Faked, confused expression. Hubby. The one you signed for yourself and just spent thousands on. Entitled parent. Oh, I was gonna wait until your birthday and give it to you as a present. And well, now you ruined it. She wanted more time to go shopping. I'll bet. Give it. Now. But now.
entitled parent hands over credit card grudgingly, and hubby promptly cuts it up, making her very upset. He tells her that was supposed to help us through with the house, wedding, and pregnancy. We decided to go for the trifecta, and now we were thousands in debt, and she needed to pay us back. I don't have that kind of money. I'm your mother, and you needed to help me. Hubby, I have my own family now. We are your family. Payment, now! So entitled parent called in his youngest sister and youngest brother, who was developmentally delayed, to write hubby a check for $100 from each of their accounts to pay for their trip to Disney World, and gave us another $100 in loose pennies. We never got another dime. Had to wrap pennies every day for a week to return them before change machines were available, and the bank only took wrapped, signaled, and dated. Fast forward 3 years. She comes over to our tiny 2-bedroom apartment and tells hubby, "What happened? You used to be so good with money." I had to get in front of him and told her to leave before she got hurt. Never saw him so angry in my life. So, that is how we ended up with $10,000 in credit card fees, including late fees. He wouldn't press charges because it was his mom. I have so many more stories too. Next we've got, fire me? You're all losing your jobs. After uni, late 2018, I fell on rough times and was forced to move back to my hometown. I tried to transfer my job to a branch in my area, but failed. Thus, I needed to get a new job. I settled for a 20-hour-a-week job at a Bookies with a second bartending job in the evenings. The Bookies is the target for my revenge, which was entirely accidental. Involved are the following: Janelle, my manager's manager; Shay, my manager; George and Gordon, my coworkers; and Kara, a coworker at another store who is relevant later. Names changed and or redacted. I ended up working behind the counter as a customer service manager, basically a step up from a cashier. It's fancy when seen on a CV, but there's nothing really to it. I took bets, chatted with customers, helped people with machines, and for the vast majority of my shift, sat around waiting for something to do. I got on well with my coworkers, or so I thought, and had no major issues. It was 20 hours a week, about £1 more than a minimum wage job with a lot of overtime required of me and irregular shift patterns. Though I had no issue with the job, beyond how difficult it was to juggle the schedules of both of my jobs. In February of 2019, after working for the company for 6 months, I was invited to a probation hearing. It cannot be emphasized enough that it was a probation hearing in which I would have my performance reviewed and, as informed in training, was entitled to a pay raise at the end of it. I arrived that morning to a disciplinary hearing where, without even a shred of evidence, I was accused of 11 different cash discrepancies dating back to early November of 2018, shortly after I had started, which all amounted to £271, all but one of which I had never heard of before. These had apparently been reported and logged by my manager, Shay, and my coworkers, despite no one saying a word to me at all. Not a whisper in the 5 months this had apparently been occurring. I was told that it was unacceptable. A call was made to HR, and I was terminated on the spot and forced to hand over my keys and to never set foot in the store again. To my protests, I was told the decision could not be appealed and I would eventually receive written confirmation of my employment's termination in the post. I didn't let myself slump around and feel sorry for myself, so on the way home, I opened up Indeed and applied for a bunch of jobs, and before I arrived home, had an interview set up for the next week at what is my current place of work. Now, I was furious, fuming at having gone to what I thought should have been a normal probation meeting and having, effectively, been called a thief and been banned for life from a place I'd never go to anyway. But somehow, my parents were angrier and ordered me to let them know when they got into contact with me again. Almost 2 weeks later, I received an email from the company's HR which reiterated the accusations and stated again that I was terminated. My mom sat me down in the kitchen and walked me through a letter response that was 2 parts professional and 3 parts scathing.
ripping into them about their unprofessional conduct, their ludicrous claims, their lack of evidence, the holes in their story, because there were quite a few, and finally, the cherry on the cake, the employment laws they had broken. Now, I didn't want much, just a nice reference, a promise that not a whisper of these accusations would turn up when my new job asked them for a reference, because by then, I'd already been offered the job. I then attached the letter to an email to fire back at their HR department. Then I added Janelle's work email, then her boss's email, and finally the holding company that owned the brand, because I wanted to make sure this was seen. A bit of background. The Bookies I worked for is a brand that is owned by an international company. Their name, behind the scenes, is slapped on everything, and they pretty much dictate everything we did. I'm not sure if holding company is the correct term, but I'll stick to that for now. Anyway, I sent this email with a 48-hour window for a response. I received a reply the next day from the same email that my demands were being met. I smirked victoriously and moved on with my life, happy to wash my hands with the entire ordeal. However, I'd set off a chain reaction that I wouldn't know about until 3 months later. 3 months on, I'd settled into my new job, a call center position with double the hours and well over double the pay. I'd gone through training and was settling into my new position when I see a new set of trainees settling in near my team. Among them was Gordon, one of my coworkers from the Bookies. I was stunned. Gordon had been at the Bookies for 6 years when I joined. He was well liked, good at his job, and a favorite of the managers. There was no way he'd been fired. Though I didn't really want to talk to him, as I was of the impression that he, George, and my manager had likely set me up, I did want to know what happened. Luckily, on seeing me in the break room one shift, he sought me out and told me everything. Apparently, my email had been read by the higher-ups in the holding company and had caused a lot of scrutiny to fall onto the Bookies in our town, of which there were 3 in our area that Janelle was responsible for, 2 in my town and a 3rd in a neighboring one. Someone in HR passed a message down to the area manager, Janelle's boss, claiming they wanted things investigated and they wanted results yesterday, causing him to drop everything and descend on our little town with the panic and aggression of a man whose superiors were watching his every breath. He went to Janelle wanting to know why he hadn't been made aware previously that I was apparently stealing money, why I had been given keys to the shop and shifts on my own when allegations of that nature were attributed to me, and why I hadn't been put under investigation. Turns out, Janelle had, in fact, put in my employee file that I was under investigation, but had never actually gone through with any of the official procedures for monitoring and investigating me. Thus, she had fired me for the accused crime without looking into it at all, falsely claiming otherwise. Thus, the area manager took the dates and amounts of the cash discrepancies, confirmed that they had been reported on those days without my knowledge in Shay's own logbook of the shop's cash, and sent that information onto our security team to investigate. Another little detail is that the CCTV for every shop in the brand is outsourced to a private security company who monitors each shop remotely and has access to all the cameras and video. As was procedure, they looked into the dates mentioned to see if I'd been doing anything. I know I wasn't, and nothing was ever said to me. But they did find something. Turns out, money was going missing from the shop, but surprise, surprise, it wasn't me, but George and Shay. They not only set me up, for reasons I will never know, but were also falsifying numbers and cash checks on the system to hide it. One thing Shay was caught doing was deliberately shortchanging customers by taking portions of their winnings without them even knowing it. Bear in mind, a lot of our customers were elderly men and women. Gordon claims that he once opened the shop after I and Shay had closed the night before and noticed a cash difference, but had been told not to say anything to me as I was under investigation and it could compromise it. He did apologize and I let it go. Needless to say, George and Shay were fired. But it doesn't end there. Our team was small. Including me, there were a total of 4 people working at the store. As they hadn't been able to hire anyone to replace me, George and Shay's termination meant Gordon was the only employee at the busiest shop in our area. Even if they'd been able to get other colleagues from the other 2 shops to help out, it wouldn't have been enough to keep the shop open and manage the amount of customers, so they closed the location down until they could get the staff to run it. It was at that point that Gordon handed in his resignation and applied for his job at my work, meaning they had no one. On top of that, Gordon's girlfriend worked in the same shop as Janelle, and she relayed that she was rarely at their store, in the other town, for the next few weeks before the area manager reported she was fired as well. No reason given to her. I was later issued an apology for everything by the area manager and informed she, Janelle, was no longer with the company in an email sometime later. But somehow, it doesn't end there. With the store I worked at closed, this one being on the high street and where most people prefer to go, the other location in town was the much smaller location in the suburbs, the one where Kara worked, alone. She suddenly received an influx of customers into her tiny store space and absolutely no support from other staff or upper management. Thus, for her own mental health, having already been overworked and underpaid, running an entire store by herself, she quit, meaning that location had to be closed down too. All of this at the worst possible time, March, when the Cheltenham Festival was occurring, which is a huge moneymaker in that industry, even in a small town like ours. An opportunity the three other bookies on the high street reaped the benefits of instead of my old place, as the former customers went to them instead. As it currently stands, just over a year later, both shops remain closed and I'm currently entering a job in cybersecurity, the training for which I paid for with my current job. Thank you for firing me, jerks. You did me a favor. Next we've got, customer doesn't understand how receipt lookups work. I work behind the return desk at a decently large retail store. I deal with every type of customer imaginable, the kind ones, the rude ones, and the especially rude ones. It was 2 to 3 weeks ago when one of these especially rude customers rolled in with a return. Multiple returns, rather. Right off the bat, I knew I was in for a treat. I was in the process of reticketing items previously returned on my desk, leaving little to no space for any more items on said desk. That's when this customer comes and slams her bag of returns right on top of everything I was working on, including our expensive machines. Machines remained okay, by the way. No greeting said, just returns. I muster up the tightest smile possible and slowly remove my own work elsewhere and begin opening a computer for the return. I then ask the basics. Do you have a receipt? Nope. What about the form of payment used to purchase these items? Nope. I then tell her that I'll begin a receipt lookup in hopes of finding proof of these purchases so she can receive the full amount back for them. I start asking for her phone number in hopes that it's linked to our reward system, which would make the search easier. This is where she loses her patience. Just as I'm about to ask when these items were purchased, she goes off. Why don't you just scan the items? Scanning them should bring up my receipt. I tell her no, that's not how purchases from our store work. She rolls her eyes at me and laughs. You just don't want to do it. Every other store does it for me. Stop making this difficult. I explain as calmly as possible that it's not possible to pull up a receipt just from scanning a barcode from the items bought. We need a specified date when bought and either a phone number, email, or form of payment used in said purchase tagged along with an item ID. Not just the item ID alone. That's literally useless. She gives me attitude for another few minutes as I go back months and months in an attempt to find her receipt to these items. But alas, she had to make yet another comment about my work. This shouldn't be as difficult as you're making it out to be, she angrily stated as she tried tilting the computer monitor so she could get a look at what I was doing from behind the desk. Not allowed. I quickly stopped her movements, wanting to protect our property, and snapped. It becomes difficult when you come in here empty-handed and impatient. She didn't say much after that. 5 more minutes of desperately searching, she gave up. She grabbed her unreturned items and thanked me for nothing. I smiled and told her to have a great rest of her day, to which she replied, "Forget you," to me and left. A coworker was quick to fill me in on previous encounters she had with that same customer. Apparently, she's known for being the worst of the worst. Thrives off of it even. Today, Sunday, God's Day, this devil of a woman returned, with more returns. My coworkers and I were already pretty busy as is, But I made it a priority to take care of this red-horned woman despite it. I make room on our desk for her and beckon her up. She has attitude right off the bat. I'm here to return items, and hopefully this time you'll actually return them instead of BSing me like my last visit. I grinned and told her I remembered her and hoped she was doing well. She ignored it and beckoned to her items. I searched the bag she provided for a receipt, and what do you know? She didn't have one. Nor did she have the form of payment used to purchase them with. Cue déjà vu. Despite the previous interaction, she still couldn't handle the questions I had next. Dates, emails, phone number, anything to help, she still didn't get it. Still didn't appreciate my efforts to find her receipt. I never have issues with this stuff, not from any other stores. This specific store is beyond terrible with its customer service. You should be ashamed with how you've treated me. To her lack of knowledge, a manager had been watching the interaction from the start as she was familiar with the customer herself. My manager swooped in after that statement, sweetened the customer up a bit, and somehow got a brand new phone number out of her, one that this customer never provided me with, in which helped me find the receipt just like that. Her items matched with the receipt found, and she was credited a whopping $195 to her card. You would think she would be happy that the issue was solved, but unfortunately, no. She began asking my manager why our systems were so flawed and why it takes so many steps for a receipt to be found. My manager explained our policies regarding the subject, and the devil woman left without another word spoken. I never even get rude with customers like I got with this woman, even ones that talk to me with serious attitude. This one crossed a ridiculous amount of lines, from nearly ruining our printing machines, touching our property without permission, showing impatience, and being overall rude to me despite my long efforts to retrieve her receipt. I felt defeated. Returns without any proof of a purchase are hard, beyond hard sometimes, but we like to go the extra mile in an attempt to find them for customers. Nobody wants to go home without their money back. We know this. We try to help, we really do. I wish more people could sense this. Older lady I always help in the grocery store thought I worked there. I do my shopping the exact same time every week in a large grocery store. There's a little old woman who usually does her shopping at around the same time. She has some mobility issues and doesn't buy much, so after a few times of seeing her having to flag down help every time she wanted something from a shelf above the shoulder level, I approached her and asked if she'd like a shopping companion. It took me under 10 minutes to get everything on her list, and she was very gracious and grateful, even offered me a few dollars, which I didn't accept, of course. I didn't give this a second thought. I wasn't raised to question whether you take 10 minutes to help an old woman in her grocery store or not. It's just what you do. So next week, when I saw her again, I asked if she'd like someone to shop with her, and she was again very grateful for the help. It became our usual routine that whenever I spotted her, usually every other week or two, I'd give her a hand. One week, I didn't do my shopping at the usual time. I worked a little late, and when I came in, there was a big fuss at the customer service desk, involving my shopping friend and a young man. I started to go over to be sure everything was all right, and hear the young man say, "What do you mean no one with that name works here?" She had a name tag on. My mom saw the name, right, Ma? And she said she did. And the customer service kid is saying he really doesn't have anyone by that name who works there. The young man is going, "What do you mean? Did you fire her? She was here last week, right, Ma?" And I realize it's my name and the potential source of confusion. I go in for shopping immediately after work, and my work uniform is a maroon shirt and the khaki pants with a name tag. The grocery store I shop at has white shirts, any kind of pants you want, and a maroon apron with the store's logo, so a little similar. I go over and she gleefully cries, "There you are! I want you to meet my son!" And he started telling me how grateful he is I was taking time out of my work to personally help his mom shop, and now that he's in town, he wanted to say thanks in person and give me some money, or at least put in a good word with my manager at the store. So could I point them out so he could speak with them? I explained the confusion, and they were both so touched. It was one of the most poignant moments of my life, and definitely the most meaningful I've ever had in a supermarket. If you saw a little old lady trying to reach something in a supermarket, but you could reach it, would you help her? Please let me know. Entitled mom yells at me for bad service and then asks me for a job. So I'm the manager of a popular fast food chain, and our store is crazy when it comes to service because of the demands of the owner. You get better service in our dingy little burger joint than any 5-star restaurant. We rush to open the door for our customers as they enter and leave. We serve them at their table, clear away their dishes, and we bring mints at the end of their meal. I'd also like to point out that we are not allowed to take tips, and if customers do leave tips, it goes to the owners. Also, we always go to the table after the customer has had a few bites to make sure everything is to their satisfaction. Anyways, this entitled mom was dining in, and apparently she is a regular, though I've never seen her before. She comes up to me in the middle of a huge rush. Entitled mom: "Excuse me?" Me: "Hello, how can I help you?" Entitled mom: "Your employee was really rude. I want her fired." May I ask what she did to upset you? I told her my son's order tasted disgusting, and she refuses to eat it. Your employee refused to get me a new one. She hands me the receipt, which had about $50 worth of food on it, and that is a lot of food for a fast food place. Me: "I'm sorry about that. I'll send someone over to pick up whatever your son didn't eat, and we'll get your order made." What do you mean? We can dispose of the food that he didn't like, so you don't have to clean it yourself. We already ate the food. You ate the food? Yes. You said it was disgusting. It was the worst food I've ever had in my life. Ma'am, I can't remake your entire order again. You've eaten everything. If your son didn't like it, I can definitely remake his order. But it was gross. At this point, her server overhears and joins in the conversation. Server: "Ma'am, I asked you if everything was to your satisfaction a couple of minutes after we gave you the order, and you responded, 'Everything is fine.'" Well, it wasn't. Just give me the whole order. Me: "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I cannot do that." She went nuts. I can't believe this is happening. I've never been treated with such disrespect. My son deserves to eat with his family. He will feel self-conscious if everyone is watching him. Me: "Ma'am, I'm only able to fix what was wrong with the order, which is your son's food." The service here used to be amazing. It took us 3 years to beat you guys to the door. I told all of my church friends how good you guys were. Now you want to embarrass me? Me: "I'm sorry you were not satisfied with the service today." She cuts me off. I'm going to tell all of my church friends about you and your scam. We are going to get you fired. She proceeds to storm out without her children, who are scurrying around after her once they realized she wasn't coming back. I brushed this off and sent my report into the owners in case they called corporate. 1 week later, I'm working the same shift, and in walks entitled mom with her kids. She comes up to me and smiles. "Hi, I'm wondering if you are hiring here." Me, obviously stunned. "What?" "I'm looking for a job, and I absolutely love the service here. I want to apply." Me: "What? You want to work here?" "Yes, your service is amazing. It took us 3 years to beat you guys to the door. That's how good you guys are. I always recommend my church friends here. I really want to be part of this team." At this point, I am at a loss for words. I put on the sweetest smile and said, "Lady, I can assure you that I will never hire you, and I will make sure that none of our other locations will hire you. You are the last person I want on my team, so I will not be accepting your application." I don't think anyone has ever spoken to her like that before, because she just stood there with her jaw flapping open and shut, trying to process what happened. To be honest, I wasn't even sure what happened. I had never spoken to a customer like that before, and it was very thrilling. Since she didn't say anything, I continued, "You are more than welcome to tell your church friends what I said." And I walked to the door and held it open for her. She was silent as she walked out and didn't even acknowledge me when I wished her a lovely day. Edit: I just want to add that I live in Canada. Edit 2: Since so many of you are asking for clarification, she said beat you to the door, because our staff always opens the door for the customers. It took 3 years for her to open the door for herself. Speaking of fast food, what's your favorite fast food place? Please let me know. I prefer McDonald's. Next we've got encounter with entitled parents in the pediatric emergency room. This happened yesterday. My 3-year-old daughter DX'd with pneumonia, and we ended up in the emergency room. Pneumonia is very serious. She was put on a nebulizer and O2 and given an IV for more meds while we waited for a room to open up in the PICU. The emergency room was pretty full. The rooms are small, and you share them. There is a curtain that divides them. There are no doors, just another curtain. Around 4 p.m., a family arrives with mom, dad, and 5-year-old kid. The mom briefly looks in on my side of the room and could see my kid hooked to the machines with an IV. It's obvious that this isn't a stubbed toe. So I can't help but hear the parents explaining why their kid's in the ED. Stomach pain. Meanwhile, the kid is asking for something to eat. She sounds quite perky. Parents insist she has a kidney infection. Whatever, I don't know her history. Not interested. So my daughter was given a shot to help her open her airways. Her O2, which they wanted 90 or above, kept dipping down into the low 80s, making an alarm sound. The nebulizer makes some noise, and the side effect is hyperactivity, so my extremely sick kid was medically wired as heck. Within 30 minutes of arriving, the entitled parents call for a nurse and ask for a private room because their kid needs to rest somewhere quiet. Meanwhile, their kid was blasting YouTube videos from her tablet and loudly demanding chocolate chip cookies and milk. The nurse explains that there are no private rooms in the emergency room. My daughter then starts having a coughing fit, which is scary as her O2 drops off and she chokes. I had 2 nurses in there trying to help by suctioning her and patting her back. I'm trying to help her. My daughter's turning blue. I hear the entitled mother ask the nurse, "How long are we going to be expected to listen to that?" Afterwards, my daughter was wiped out and was crying a little, and the entitled mom rang for her nurse again and asked again for someplace quiet so her girl can rest. Her daughter was making a lot of noise playing with something. Then they started playing with the lights. The room has a switch to control the lights on each side, and then a master switch to cut all the lights. My daughter's afraid of the dark. The entitled dad cuts the lights for the room, making it quite dark, with the curtain over the door way drawn. I tell my husband to turn on the lights on our side, which he does. The entitled mom calls her nurse to complain that it's too bright for her girl to sleep. It's 5 p.m. The nurse explained that they are welcome to shut the lights off on their side, but they have to leave our side alone. They complain a bit about how ill their daughter is. Then nurse leaves and they shut the lights off for the entire room again. My husband immediately turns on ours and calls through the curtain that we need our lights on. Silence. Our nurse comes in to attend to my daughter's IV and they attempt to get her to force us to leave the lights off. Our nurse basically tells them to knock it off. Then they start pushing for more space. They attempt to push our chair away from where my husband is sitting. They put their chair way over on our side of the room, pushing the curtain into our faces essentially. My husband pushes it back. They call and complain, rinse and repeat. Finally, a room in the PICU opens up and we are told that we would be admitted in an hour. Entitled parents complain that they asked for a private room first. The nurse explains that we are being admitted, not given a private room in the ED. The entitled parents demand that they be admitted first because their daughter is so much sicker. The nurse says that there is no reason for her to even be admitted and she probably just needs to go to the bathroom. Next we've got, not everyone in a suit wants to sell you a car. I'm a practicing attorney in an area known for many jerks being inherent to the local population. This incident occurred earlier today and I just got the time to type this out. Just to set the stage, I wear a suit until I go to bed, and I'm just over 6 feet and 250 pounds. I own a heavily modified car, so I take it to the performance shop I had do the modifications every 2,000 miles or so for technical inspections and to dial in the tune. With the changing season and a few new components, we moved it to once every 500 miles to make sure everything's all proper, which means I'm having the car for a look over just about each week since I commute around 40 miles. Across the street from the shop is a dealership for very high-end cars. Specifically, one side serves a high-end British automaker known for ultra-luxury work and an Italian brand known for being gaudy. I'm a bit of a gearhead, so I've taken to walking across the street to chat up the employees and to see if there's anything exciting enough for me to want to get a model car of for my desk in their inventory. I'm on good terms with the staff there since a couple of them are former clients for rather exciting speeding tickets and the like, and my girlfriend is a sales representative at an Audi dealership in the same network. I'm examining a gorgeous green coupe and waiting for a coffee an employee had gone to get, since these dealerships have expensive coffee machines and darn it, they're gonna use them, especially for a friend. I feel a tap on my shoulder and turn around only to find what could be described as just under 5 feet of dark skin wrapped around silicone and the vague facsimile of a person looking at me with mild impatience and attired in booty shorts and some sort of almost inadequate crop top and colors that can be described as a violent and sticky violation of one's eye sockets and a pair of worryingly high heels. Just to be clear, in most cases, prospective customers make an appointment so that product specialists can devote their full attention to the needs of the client. At this moment, us and a local Instagrammer were the only people on the showroom floor. "Can I help you?" I ask. A mistake, to be sure, but one easy to make when you get through law school on customer service jobs. This entity proceeds to ask questions of me about the SUV offering of this brand, power, engines, what can fit in it, that sort of stuff. Being a gearhead, I actually know many of the things she asks, or can refer to a piece of laminated paper on a nearby example. Then she asks me for a test drive. Firstly, I don't work there. And secondly, I don't believe test drives happen for that level of car without one having already contracted to buy it. I attempt to answer her with an, "I'm sorry ma'am, but I cannot do that as I don't work here." This does not fly. She raises her voice and interrupts me before I can inform her of my lack of employment at the establishment. "It's because of how I look, isn't it?" was what passed from the most definitely augmented lips. Firstly, no. And secondly, I don't work here. I try to be concise, already shifting into a mode of how I speak when speaking to the court. "Listen here, you deceitful jerk." Her words, not mine. "I've seen you up in here talking with the salesmen's." I remember that unneeded plural very clearly. "And I know you work with them. So let me test drive this car, and I'll forget about how rude you've been." She starts approaching very close at this point. "Ma'am, I don't work here. And if I did, it would be hard to get a test drive anyway." I would be interrupted by one hand adorned with pink claws grabbing me by my necktie and dragging me down to her level. I remind you that I'm 6'1" and 250 pounds, and my head has been jerked down a good foot. My glasses fall to the floor. "Shut up and get me those darn keys before I tell your manager." It's at this point that my friend returns to the showroom with the coffee from the attached dealership and witnesses this goblin assailing his friend. He strides over, puts on a wide smile, and asks, "What's wrong?" She turns on her heel, resulting in a rather unpleasant crunch as her heel crushes the lens of my glasses. I didn't quite catch her rant directed at the real employee, but I did finally have enough of this. I pulled my card from my pocket, thrust it in her face, and spoke with the same voice I use in court to make conclusions, and the same little smile. "Ma'am, I do not work here. I am an attorney who is friends with several employees here. I just answered your questions because I love the products of this brand and I know some things about it. Now, I am going to ask that either you hand over a check for $600 to cover damages you have inflicted upon my glasses, or I will get the police involved for the battery you performed upon my person." I then crossed my arms, and after a moment of looking between me and the door and the security cameras, she sighs and surprisingly pulls out a checkbook and writes me a check for the damages. I put it in my pocket and observed the general manager of the dealership, who had seen it happen on camera, rush out and ban her on the spot for assaulting somebody in his dealership before security, who had been holding back until a manager gave word, escorted her out. The manager apologized profusely and gave me a fancy paperweight for free for my troubles. I thanked him and left after drinking the coffee. I got my prescription sunglasses from the car so I'd be able to drive safely before calling up my boss, one of the partners at the firm, to tell him my side of events in case she tried something with the card I gave her. I took the check to her bank once the adjustments on my car were done, and surprisingly, it cashed out without incident. I'm going to the optometrist tomorrow to get new glasses, and according to my girlfriend, she actually got the notice at her dealership to deny service to that cretin as well. So, all's well that ends well. What kind of car do you drive? Please let me know. Next we've got Entitled Mom Goes Off Because Wife and I Spend Our Money on Things We Need. A bit of background. I moved out of home when I was 18. I am now 30 and married, living with my wife. Since I left my home 12 years ago, I have worked full-time, including 10 years in the military. I am completely independent from my parents and have been the entire time. I have never relied on or asked them for anything. I have two sisters who still live at home. They both work casual and study. They are both shocking with money, constantly going overseas on holidays or to concerts and festivals with friends, just blowing every cent they earn. Their choice though, good on them. Me, I've been on one overseas holiday for my honeymoon, but that's it. I save money every week and always have. I have fun too. I just make sure that if I can help it, I don't go backwards. Yet, for some reason, entitled mom is always on my back about money. Not my sisters, just me. Whenever I spend anything, it's a big deal. She also has this thing about my wife not earning enough. She works full-time and makes a decent salary, just not quite what mine is. It doesn't matter. We're a team, and my wife is amazing. She does a lot for us in so many other aspects of our life. Entitled mom is always saying that my wife is just playing me for my money, and one of these days she will leave me and take half, which she apparently hasn't earned. Well, that's all BS. My wife and I have a great marriage. She's an amazing woman, and even if she did become unhappy and want to leave, she would absolutely deserve half, as income is only a small part of what someone brings to a marriage, and my wife is an absolute star. Honestly, I think it just makes entitled mom mad that we don't need her. So anyway, the story. Recently, there was a large hailstorm in my city. There was widespread damage. Thousands of vehicles were destroyed, including my wife's car. Luckily, the car was insured, and after a couple of weeks, we received a decent payout. Although my wife loved her car, we did see this as a bit of a blessing in disguise, as we had an old personal loan outstanding as well as a credit card with a little owing also. The plan was to completely pay off both of these, close the accounts, and with what was left, buy my wife a car. Then, if there was still some left, we would put some extra cash against our home loan. Yes, I know it sounds like we are drowning in debt. I assure you, we are not. Our situation is very manageable. We make all payments on time and still manage to put something away every week for ourselves. So anyway, this was all a few weeks back, and since then, we have done all of the above as planned. We are extremely happy as we have wiped a lot of our debt, everything except the home loan, and my wife loves her new car despite it being a bit of a downgrade. Since all of this occurred, I had not heard from entitled mom. My parents are retired and traveling the country in a caravan, so I'm not bothered by this. Yesterday, I decided to call and check in. Things are normal at first. Conversation is pleasant, but I can tell entitled mom has something on her mind, so I ask if something's wrong. The floodgates are opened. She's been holding this in for weeks. I paraphrase, but here's how it went down. Entitled mom: I'll tell you what's wrong. Your wife's spending $35,000 on a car when you have a home loan to think about. Your wife is manipulative and selfish, and you are a gutless pushover. She will send you broke, and your father and I won't be there to pick up the pieces. Me: Whoa, what the heck? First of all, why on earth do you think we spent that on a car? Where would you have even got that number from? Reminder, I haven't spoken to entitled mom in weeks. As far as I know, she had no idea we had bought the car yet. Your sister showed me your wife's Snapchat story. There was a photo of the car with the price in the window, so don't lie to me. Me: Well, that photo was taken before we even spoke with a dealer. The price in the window was $32,000, not $35,000, and that was the original price. There was a sale on, dropping at $6,000, and I was able to talk them down further, $3,000. On top of all that, my mother-in-law gave my wife some of her nan's inheritance to go towards it. Entitled mom, casually moving past the part where she was wrong. Well then, tell me what you paid for it. You know what? No, I don't owe you an explanation, and after the way you just attacked me, you won't get one. If you wanted to know, maybe you could have called and asked how we were going with the car situation at some point over the last few weeks, but I haven't heard from you, and our finances are none of your business anyway. Entitled mom hangs up. Haven't heard a thing from her in days now, and don't expect to for a while. Spoke to my dad. His advice is, don't poke the bear. Makes me laugh. Apparently, my wife is manipulative and I am a pushover. Yeah, sure. Might be time to go no contact for a bit. Have your parents ever tried to control what you spend your money on? Let me know, I'd really love to hear from you. Next we've got Entitled parents sit outside and let their spawn run amok in a restaurant. Cast, we've got the staff, and we've got entitled dad, and we've got their spawn. There's a cafe near my apartment that I've been going to a couple times a week for the last month-ish. By this point, the staff all know me as I go in at random times of the day, and I tip really well in a non-tipping culture because I'm usually there for a couple hours and just have tea. On Saturday, I had some work to do, so I brought my laptop and had a working dinner. The front of the cafe was packed, so I went to sit in the back, very separated from the rest of the cafe, up some stairs, past some offices, etc. I soon found out why the back was empty. Within minutes of sitting down, a herd of screaming banshees ran by. Enter the spawn. You see, this cafe has an enclosed kids' playroom in the back that's full of toys, drawing material, and stuff for them to do so they can play while the parents eat. I had been there before when kids were in there, and there was some noise, because they make noise. But it was never bad, because the parents always sat at the table by the play area and kept them under control. This was not the case with these parents. These parents were nowhere to be seen in the area and had just left their 3 spawn there unsupervised while they had dinner. I later found out they weren't even in the restaurant. They were in a separate outdoor seating area that was basically as far away from the playroom as you can get. I assume that's why they never heard the screams. After about 10 minutes of watching them run around in the back restaurant area, not the playroom, screaming, throwing toys, bumping into tables and servers, and generally wreaking havoc, I was pretty upset. Eventually, inevitably, one got hurt and went screaming and running to dad through the restaurant. Entitled Dad 1 comes back, herds the spawn back into the playroom, talks to them for a few minutes, and then leaves. Within minutes, the spawn are back out doing the same thing. The servers kept apologizing to me, but there wasn't anything they could do, and it wasn't their fault. Apparently, the Entitled Dads had decided to periodically check on the spawn because a little bit earlier, Entitled Dad 2 showed up and stood there watching them wreak havoc on the restaurant. He talked to them, but didn't stop them from throwing a toy at a server or running and screaming and bumping into stuff. Basically, he just didn't care. I signaled one of the servers to come over, and he apologized again and said there was an empty table up front I could move to. I told him no problem, winked, and said, I hope that dad speaks English. I'm currently in a non-English speaking country. I then threw the Karen fit to end all Karen fits. I raged about how horrible their kids are and how the parents should be shamed for letting their kids behave in such a manner and terrorize an entire restaurant because they were too lazy to be parents. The server had his back to the Entitled Dad and kept apologizing, but he was actually cracking up because he knows me and knows I'm generally a chill person. I ranted away for several minutes about the spawn and their shameful parents, basically ripping them apart. Then I demanded they move me away from the little terrors. When we got up front, he told the other servers what I had done, and they all started cracking up. They came over to thank me for saying what they couldn't, and they proceeded to buy me a drink and thanks. Within minutes, I saw Entitled Dad 2 herd the kids through the restaurant and out onto the patio so they would be with their parents. I could still hear them screaming, and they were running around like crazy, but at least now they were only harassing their own family instead of random strangers. Occasionally, I use the loud American complainer reputation to do some good. Have also pulled it out on queue jumpers on a few occasions. So Karen, what did you think of today's stories?
They were horrible. Horrible? How dare you?
These were some of the best we've ever read.
Oh, shut up, Mr. Reddit. It's ridiculous what people like myself have to go through. Dealing with stupid people like yourself and your subscribers.
Look, Karen, you can say whatever you want about me, but don't you talk about my re-army.
Tch, re-army. Most of your viewers aren't even subscribed to your channel. 70% if I'm correct.
Well, I can't argue with that. That's true. Most of my viewers don't actually subscribe for some reason.
It's because you're stupid, Mr. Reddit.
No, I'm not. Alright guys, let's prove Karen wrong by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications.
Pah, they're not going to listen to you.
And if you'd like me, or Karen,
what?
To record a special message for you, come visit me on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.
Never!
And join as a channel member today, and Karen will give you a special shout out in the next video.
Like heck I will!